Sure.
Okay. I call this meeting of the Alcohol License Review Committee to order at 5:36 p.m. And Mr. Verbick, please help me out and make sure I get stuff in the right order, since I think the only meetings that I've chaired from the start have been exceptions and not regular meetings. Do we do, never mind, I can see it right here. Okay, so this meeting is governed by Robert's Rules of Orders. Any speakers wishing to address the committee regarding an agenda item must first complete a registration form and submit it to the city clerk designee. Speakers may speak to the committee after they're called by the chair. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Committee members may choose to ask you questions, and you'll have additional time to respond to that. And I'm going to hand it over to our tech facilitator to explain how to do the registrations and how the teleconference works.
Great, thank you. Welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link in your original email. Members, if you're able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the board or commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Mr. Verbick, are there any notified absences? And do I need to?
No, there are not.
All right, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Skidmore.
Here.
Revere.
Here.
Canospina.
Present.
Landgraf. Westra.
Here.
Donnelly.
Present.
Grady.
Here.
Carter.
You need to unmute yourself, Elder Carter.
Present.
Fletcher.
Here.
Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Verbick. First order of business is approval of the minutes from our meeting on June 17th, 2020. What's your pleasure? Ms. Westra. Sorry, go ahead.
There we go. Move approval of the minutes.
I hear a motion. Do I hear a second? Mr. Grady, any discussion? Hearing none. Any in opposition, please indicate by raising your hand so we can have a roll call vote. Seeing no opposition, Mr. Verbick, please record a vote of approval. Is there anyone registered for general public comment?
No, there's not.
Disclosures and recusals. Members of the LRC should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Are there any such disclosures? Okay, seeing none. Presentation of the consent agenda. So the ALRC uses a consent agenda to dispose of routine administrative matters without taking unnecessary time and attention. Mr. Verbick will read off a list of items that have been proposed for the consent agenda. Any member of the committee can ask for an item to be separated from the consent agenda for any reason or no reason at all. Once this list has been finalized and voted on, all of those items will be disposed of. And if you are here for one of those items, it will have been settled. Please wait for us to actually vote, though, because an item that's proposed on the consent agenda might not remain on it. Mr. Verbick, will you please read off which items are on the consent agenda?
Change of agents, recommend to grant, council to grant items, change of agents, items 2, 3, 4, and 5, business name change, item 6, entity reorganizations, items 7, 8, and 10, and Streetery extension of premise, items number 12, 13, 15, and 19.
Thank you, Mr. Verbick. Committee, are there any items that you would like removed from the consent agenda? Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. I have a question on item 6, if there's anyone here to speak about item 6.
Not as of when I got my list of registrants.
I don't see anyone for item 6.
Okay. I know it just says it's a DBA name change. I guess my only question was whether or not there was an underlying, any sort of underlying operation shift, given that they've moved to an arts cafe.
Actually, I did call them and speak with them yesterday because they did have LLC written in that line, and I confirmed with them that it's not actually an LLC change. They sort of have 2 LLCs, but they said the liquor license is remaining with Frameshift Arts Cafe. It's still the same people operating that same location. They're just changing the DBA name to the Burr Oaks. But Frameshift Arts Cafe LLC will still be in control of the alcohol license.
Okay. Thank you.
For item 12, the Streetery extension of premises for Echo Tap and Grill, we have a registrant who is in support and wishes to speak. Mr. Verbick, do we generally assume that if somebody wants to speak in favor and we would be approving the item that we can go forward, or should we remove it from the consent agenda so they can speak?
I think we typically just pass it on the consent agenda. I'm not sure if there's anything, although I feel like it's different now with the virtual meetings that I don't know if there's something they would like to add. So I don't know if we want to at least recognize them before we pass the consent agenda just to figure that out.
Let's do that. Let's see. I don't see
Susan
There we go. Perfect.
should be there.
Yes. Susan Bulgren, in your registration, you said that you wished to speak. Is there anything you specifically need to say, or if this would be approved, are you going to be happy?
Guess she's not there.
And I see a hand. Let's see, Alder Carter.
Yes, I have a question for Jim. Jim, on the consent agenda, the numbers next to it, are they corresponding with any numbers on the agenda? For example, you have change of agent, Oakwood Lutheran Home is number 6. It's not number 6 on the agenda, is it?
You might need to refresh your link because I just save over the previous versions. So you might be seeing last month's consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, well, committee, what's your pleasure? Mr. Grady,
Yes, I vote we approve the consent agenda as it is.
a motion to approve. And is there a second? A second from Ms. Westra. Alder Carter, do you have a comment?
No, I'm lowering my hand.
Excellent. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as proposed. Any discussion? Mr. Grady?
Oh, that was a mistake. Sorry.
No worries. So hearing no discussion, anyone opposed to approval of the consent agenda, granting all items on it, indicate by raising your hand so we can have a roll call vote. I see no hands. So the motion passes. All items on the consent agenda are approved. And Mr. Verbick, will you please read off all of the items so anyone listening knows if your item is being described now, it has been approved and you're good to go.
The approved consent agenda for LRC meeting July 15th, 2020. Recommended council to grant item number 2, change of agent, Wisconsin Fine Wines and Spirits. Number 3, change of agent, El Panzan Restaurant LLC. Number 4, change of agent, Quick Trip Inc. Number 5, change of agent, No Vino Downtown LLC. Number 6, business name change, Frame Shift Arts Cafe LLC. New DBA, The Burr Oak. Number 7, entity reorganization, Whole Foods Market Group Inc. Number 8, entity reorganization, LQ Management LLC. Number 10, entity reorganization, State Street Brat House of Madison Inc. Number 12, Streetery extension of premise, Echo on Main Inc. Number 13, Streetery extension of premise, BBC Harmony Bar LLC. Number 15, Streetery extension of premise, Paul's Club Inc. Approval is for outdoor capacity of 20. And number 19, Streetery extension of premise, Weary Traveler Inc. Mr. Donnelly, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Verbick. Next item is item number 1 on the agenda, operator's license application for Crystal Damiani. Do we have a registrant? Mr. Verbick?
No, there's no one there.
Okay. All right. We don't have registrant. This item was on our agenda last month and maybe the month before as well. Mr. Fletcher.
I have a question. I don't know if this is for Attorney Briss. Do we need to take this off the table before we pass it? Or do whatever action to it?
If this is on the agenda, the current month's agenda, and it's listed as a new item, I don't think you need to take it off the table.
Okay.
That's my understanding as well.
With that being said, given that this is the second month, I would motion to move to place on file without prejudice.
I hear a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Cano Espina. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in opposition indicate by raising your hand. If no one in opposition, Mr. Verbick, please record the vote. Next item is item 9, entity reorganization for Seven Iron Social. Mr. Verbick.
I believe Colin Smith had registered. I just want to say the reason that this one was not on the consent agenda is because it's a 3-member LLC, and last month we approved a change out of an officer, and this month we're approving another change. So my thought is, had those two come together, it would not have been flagged for the consent agenda. So I thought because they were so close together that it was appropriate to not put on the consent agenda for today.
I agree. So as of 5:11, there was no one registered for, oh, nope. Is this Registrant?
You guys hear me?
Speak up a little bit.
All right, how about now?
Much better.
Awesome. So I didn't realize they had come in two separate registrations. We were dropping an agent or dropping an officer and adding an officer at the same time.
So as of, 6 months ago, how many officers did you have?
3. So we dropped Ryan Ranget and added Katie Savannah McCormick.
And that's the sum total of all the changes?
Yep. Yeah. So it's just Joe McCormick, Savannah McCormick, and myself.
Okay. Committee, what is your pleasure? Alder Carter.
So Colin, last month, who did you add?
We added Katie Savannah McCormick.
Last month.
Oh,
So I thought it was at the same time we dropped and added at the same time. I didn't realize they were 2 separate things.
actually, it appears it was a clerical error on our part. So we actually passed this last month, and somehow 2 copies of this, one ended up in the basket for last month, and the same thing ended up in the copy in the basket for this month. So we actually already passed this last month, so we can probably place this one on file. And the change occurred and was approved by council last night. So this should all be done already.
Is there?
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Verbick though. If we record that vote of placing on file and someone is doing any sort of digging later, might they find that and think that this was rejected?
I wouldn't think so, because they should see both legislative items for this, the one that we approved and then this one that's being placed on file.
Okay, let's see. Alder Verveer.
Thank you, Chairperson Donnelly. I was going to raise the same issue, that I realized that this must be a clerical error, but obviously Mr. Verbick already shared that with us, so I would move to place on file.
Okay,
And
a motion. I see
And
a second.
apologize to Colin for having to join us again tonight.
Fortunately, it was higher up in the agenda. I see a second from Mr. Fletcher. Any discussion? Mr. Grady, do you have a question or a comment?
Not anymore.
Okay. So seeing none, anyone in opposition, please raise your hand at this time. Okay. Seeing no objection, Mr. Verveer, please record the vote. And next up is item 11, entity reorganization for the Farm Tavern. Mr. Verbick. I believe we.
Yeah, I don't see.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Jeff Peterson is registered, available to answer questions, and no, that's number 7. No,
Jeff Peterson should be for this item, yeah.
Yeah, he's here. Looks like he's using a pretty old version of Zoom. Not able to hear him. It's asking him to update his Zoom.
Okay. Well, while Jeff Peterson is working that out, Mr. Verbick, can you give us the details of this item, please?
Sure. So the reason that this one was not put on the consent agenda is because it was replacing 2 members and adding 1. And there was 2 members of the LLC, and now there'd just be 1. So it's It's a full change. It's a bit complicated because, and this was sort of elaborated in an email from Mr. Peterson that I attached to the file. Mr. Peterson's father used to be the sole owner of this establishment. He has passed, and his estate was being, the executors were his sister and an attorney, and they were the two members that are being replaced. And he is now taking ownership of the LLC, and that's why this is sort of a change from two members to one. And normally my advice is someone who's doing that full change would be to fill out a new application, but given the circumstance of this, I wasn't quite sure. So he decided to proceed this way, and I had him write that the email that I attached to the legislative file.
Okay. Well, committee, what is your pleasure, Mr. Fletcher?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Mr. Verbick, just to reiterate. You mentioned the sister, the father, I think he passed away. How many, were those the only two members of the LLC at that point? And Jeff Peterson is completely new to this, right?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify the stance. I do have questions when we're able to figure out the tech.
Okay, Mr. Peterson, can you hear us?
Looks like he left the attendee list. I would suggest putting it on the table.
Well, he showed up in the attendee list again, and I promoted him to a panelist, so he's appearing.
Right. But it doesn't look like he has any audio.
Okay. Mr. Cano-Espina.
I had a question for Jim. Why is this not a completely new license? Because even with the email, even with the explanation, it seems like he's a completely new person to the business.
He is. I know we have a process for when we have a sole member or a partnership, that there's a process to apply to have the business transferred from that person to somebody else. I don't believe there's any such process for an LLC or a corporation. And so I wasn't quite sure how the committee wanted to handle this, given that it's sort of, it's within the family, it's passing from his father and then to his son. And so I wasn't quite sure what we can do or what the committee wants to do. So I gave him the explanation about how we typically handle changes to officers that are more than 50% or 100%, and he expressed a willingness to want to proceed this route.
Can I ask our city attorney for advice, or do we want to put it on the table before we talk more about it without the applicant present? I guess let me move to put it on the table, and then if there is a second for that.
I hear a motion and a second from Ms. Westra to place this item on the table. Any discussion of the motion to table? Alder Carter.
No, we can put it on the table. I had a question for Mr. Peterson, so I will lower my hand.
I got it. I'm here.
Oh.
In that case, we do have a motion before us. Mr. Cano, would you like to withdraw that motion?
Yes, sir. I will withdraw my motion so we can talk.
Is Westra okay with that? Excellent.
Hello?
All right, Mr. Peterson, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. So, committee, what questions do you have for Mr. Peterson? Alder Carter is already has the microphone, so go ahead, Alder Carter.
Mr. Peterson, have you ever worked in the business?
Yes, my dad's had it for like 40 years. And when I was going to MATC 19, I bartended for a year. And then he wanted me to be the manager to replace the manager that was there. So I managed for a year. And then starting a family. So I said I'm leaving, and I helped him find a new manager. And so then it's come full circle, and now I'm back.
Okay. That's
And,
full
yeah.
circle, all right. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Sure.
All right. What other questions? Mr. Fletcher, then Mr. Kano-Espina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Peterson, just to follow up on Alder Carter's question, do you plan to change any of the day-to-day operations of the business right now?
Not in a big way, just more food and like no shots. I just keep it low key. It's not my style to have the type of bar that it was before. And I just plan on being around as, on-premise owner.
Okay, and Jerry Ryder will continue to be your liquor beer agent?
No, he was a manager my dad had, and he's moved on and he's doing something else now.
Okay.
So when the bar closed at the beginning of COVID, and I think he maybe have collected unemployment for a while, but then when then the estate decided that they weren't going to reopen, and I think that at that time Jerry went and found a job as a landscaper or something. So he was just a manager, and now he's out of the picture.
Okay. If that's something you haven't updated with the clerk's office, you probably will want to update that then and submit the kind of change of liquor beer agent form.
Yeah, I thought some form I filled out. I remember seeing his name, and then I replaced it. He's no longer there or something. I even don't know exactly what form it was, but yeah.
Jim can point you in the right direction on that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Kano-Espina.
First, I want to say sorry for your loss. So my concern, my question is, I don't know if this is completely legal to do this transfer this way. Even though you are a family member and you were involved in the business before. So the question,
what's happening is I'm sorry, it went into an estate and as a I don't know trust or whatever. Anyway, they wanted the estate as a group did not want the farm tavern to be handled in the estate. They were urgently looking for one of the family members to take it as their own to get it off the estate. And they opened it up for bid. I bid the minimum bid, and nobody else wanted it, so now I have it. And so it came to me from the estate.
Okay. And so my question was mostly...
I'm sorry. The attorneys were for Foley and Lardner are handling the estate, and I'm just going by their counsel.
My question was mostly for our city attorney, just to make, I just want to make sure that this is something that we can do it this way. And if our city attorney says that, then I don't have a lot of concerns. So.
Okay, sure. Yep, that's up to you guys. Yep.
I don't know if it's okay, Mr. Chair, to ask our attorney now, or if we have other people.
Well, it doesn't look
I
like
can try to
anybody
answer that question.
in the queue. So go ahead, Assistant City Attorney Brest.
Has a background check been done that he doesn't have, that he's at least 21 years, or 18 years of age, and that he does not have an arrest or conviction record that is applicable in this situation? If been done,
I can just say that I am 60, and on my word, I've never been arrested for anything.
Sure. Mr. Peterson, that's a question for the clerk. So we'll let you know if we have a question for you. Mr. Verbick, has the check been done?
I believe so. Yep, he had passed background check.
if that's the case, if he meets those minimum requirements, the ownership can be modified in this way.
All right. Any further questions,
Thank you.
Mr. Kano-Espina?
Nope, that was it. Thank you so much.
Okay, there's no one in the queue. Committee, what's Mr. Fletcher?
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of item 11.
I hear a motion to approve, second from Mr. Grady. Any discussion? Alder Skidmore.
Thank you. I'm following this. I just want to confirm. I thought I heard that the agent left. Who's the, will the owner be the agent?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions, Alder Skidmore?
No.
Great, thank you. Mr. Grady? I'm sorry.
Can we approve Mr. Peterson as the agent now too? In the same motion?
No, that
Okay.
there needs to be a separate application for
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Alder Carter.
That was my question. I will lower my hand.
Excellent. Okay, so again, we have an empty queue. We have a motion and a second to approve item 11, NT reorganization of the Farm Tavern. Anyone in opposition, please raise your hand so we can have a voice vote. I see no opposition, so Mr. Verbick, please register the vote on item 11.
Who was the second on that one?
That was Mr. Grady.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peterson. Next up is item 14, Streetery extension of premises for Daisy Cafe and Cupcakery. And it looks like we don't have any registrants for this. Mr. Verbick, can you give us the overview, please?
Sure. So the reason this one was not put on the consent agenda is because for two reasons. One, they have not yet paid for their renewal fees for their alcohol license. And the second was they have not picked up the orange sign to display regarding this application. We had a couple contacts. Assistant City Attorney Jennifer Zilvey sent an email today. The owner said that it sort of slipped his mind, so he wasn't able to pick it up today. So my recommendation to the committee would be to refer this to next month.
Okay, Mr. Fletcher moves to refer.
There is someone that did register at 5:30. Daryl Sisson, Sisson, in support.
Yep, he's with them.
But he's not in the attendee list. Okay. So.
Okay, I've got a motion to refer from Mr. Fletcher and a second from Mr. Cano-Espina. Any discussion of this motion? Hearing none. Anyone in opposition to a unanimous vote indicate by raising your hand. I see no hands. Please record the vote for item 14, Mr. Verbick. Item 16, Streetery extension of premises for Maduro. And we do have a registrant available for this one, or someone registered for this one, sorry. Mr. Verbick, can you give us the overview first?
Yeah, it's going to be the same for these next three, so 16, 17, and 18. These are all Streetery extensions where I believe there's a condition on the license that limits how much outdoor capacity they can have, and what they're asking for is exceeding what's written on the license. And so I wanted the committee's approval before we made any sort of administrative change for this Streetery extension.
Excellent. Okay, so we're on item 16, one for Maduro. Committee, do you have any questions for the applicant who's available to answer them? Do you have any discussion? Do we have a motion? Ms. Westra.
I'd like to move approval.
Your motion to approve item 16. Is there a second? Mr. Grady, any discussion? Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify what the understanding of the outdoor capacity limit of the applicant currently was, because while the conditions in the license says 24, I believe if I go up, they listed their current capacity for outdoor being 36. So I just want to verify what the applicant's understanding of their existing capacity is, and it goes back to our old friend capacity.
All right. I don't see Brian Haltener in the attendees list. Joe, is there anything I'm missing?
No, he's not there.
Okay. Mr. Fletcher, there is no one available to answer your question.
I'll let you go. Thanks.
But Alder Verveer has his hand up. He might be able to shed some light on the situation. Alder Verveer.
Thank you. Yeah, as Mr. Verbick knows, I've been heavily involved in the creation of the Streetery program and literally deal with it every day and receive emails from Jim and other city staff every day about it. So I want to first share with my colleagues, I have absolutely no concern or objection whatsoever with any of these Streetery requests that are located in the Aldermanic district I represent, including Maduro. I did see recent emails from Brian Haltner asking if his attendance was required tonight. If any of you do wish to hear from him, I certainly can try to get a hold of him, as could Jim, before our meeting adjourns. With that said, the reason I had sought recognition was to ask Mr. Verbick what his advice is, and perhaps the city attorney's office as well, but what the advice is in terms of how to deal with these situations where the conditions that were originally approved for exterior say one thing, and obviously in the case of Maduro on East Main Street with the expansion into the parking lane, their outdoor capacity is obviously increased. So are you suggesting, Mr. Verbick, and again, if Attorney Briss wants to weigh in as well, but are you suggesting that we just leave alone the previously approved exterior capacity and just give you our approval that this is a temporary exterior capacity during the life of the Streetery program? Is that what you're suggesting that we do?
Yeah, the way I've been putting on the licenses is below what the premise currently exists, and it will say Streetery extension, and then it will list what the extension is, and then be ended by until October 25th, 2020, which is the end date for the Streetery program. So there's that clarification that this is an extension that has a deadline on it. Once that deadline passes, it will revert back to how it was with the conditions that are listed on the license before this approval.
I should also just interject, and I'm not opposed to the way you're doing it. That sounds totally appropriate, Jim. But we'll point out that I've received tons of requests from both restaurateurs and tavern owners, but as well as just everyday community members saying how much they love Streetery, and it's not only a lifeline for the businesses, but obviously makes our fellow neighbors more comfortable being able to enjoy socially distant al fresco eating and drinking. And so anyway, they're saying, why can't we extend this beyond, the life of street, beyond that initial date that's in the resolution adopted by the Common Council, given that it would be a Herculean miracle for there to be a widely available vaccine between now and the current official end date of Streetery. So what I'm saying is, perhaps should we just say Streetery and not put a date down? Because then I'd hate to have everybody then have to come back to your office and ask for another extension if one is granted by the Common Council.
Well, I mean, the changes that are occurring have been administrative in nature, and the applications themselves don't, well, most of all of them, I think maybe one only listed a specific date. So, I mean, if everyone was comfortable with it, I wouldn't see any reason, although I defer to the attorneys, about updating the licenses, given that the extension is for the Streetery program. And I put the date on there because that's what the date of the current Streetery program as it exists.
Yeah, again, I'm just saying that to avoid future work for you and your colleagues, maybe you just want to say Streetery and not put a end date, because I think it is likely the council will extend it. Did Attorney Burris want to add anything on this, or are you agnostic on the topic, Steve?
If the council extends the date, you could put in the resolution that you're extending the permits that are granted under it in terms of the outside capacity. And so that it wouldn't be necessary for Mr. Verbick and his staff to go through this again. But basically, this is intended to be a temporary program that, because of the special situation that's going on, when that ends, we revert back to the original numbers. It doesn't really matter legally to me how that is done, whether that is done through a council resolution or whether they go through each application one by one. But if the council wanted to just blanket extend them, I think they could legally do that. Just to extend the Streetery portion.
Right, and that clearly would require an act of the common council to extend the program that we've created, again with that end date already. I did just receive a text message from Brian Haltner, who's either watching the meeting or is in our meeting now, or maybe he heard from someone else that contacted him that we're talking about him. But he says in his text that he's available by phone now. It's not clear to me if that means that he's registered or he still needs to do that.
Brian, is that you on the phone?
I'll respond to him. Again, Joe, I don't know if that would be him or not for sure.
All right. Any further questions or comments, Alder Verbier?
No, are there questions for Mr. Haltner? Should I implore him to join our meeting?
Mr. Fletcher?
No, at this point, I'll withdraw my question and maybe make a quick ask of the clerk and make 2 quick points. One, if we do make a notation that's different than last month's Streetery applications on these, we should probably look at last month's, right? Because there were a couple that required our approval last month, correct?
I think we just had one. I think it was the one for Next Door Brewing. I think that was the only one that had a condition that ran counter to their Streetery application.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I think if there's a need to go back and make the verbiage consistent administratively, we should probably do that. The second, Jim, was, again, I don't know whether, at a certain point, we'll revert back to kind of what the regular capacities are. And I'm very much supportive of the program and thank Alder Verbier for kind of his efforts and leadership with respect to it. I think maybe one thing that would help as we at that point is if we could just re-clarify with folks kind of what their regular capacity is at that juncture, if we don't make some other policy decision about extending the doing something else with the capacity.
Mr. Chair, if I could jump in, Brian Haltner responded to me that he has registered for the meeting. And he actually does have an additional request because he had a clerical error in his application. And he actually is seeking a exterior capacity of not the 36 that's before us, but actually 48. He's able to safely and legally have 48 out there now, apparently.
All right.
Do you see that he's registered?
I saw that he was registered. I still don't see him in the call.
Yeah, he should have received an email as soon as he registered to join the meeting. So he should check that email that he used to register, which is Maduro Cigar Bar email. and click on that link and it'll bring them to this meeting.
Or you can call the number if he doesn't have a way to go on the computer with it.
Well, he says he's trying to join us. Perhaps it would be most efficient, Mr. Chair, if we place this upon the table. And if anyone needs to hear from him, if you're okay with me just making the motion for the capacity that he just texted me, he meant to apply for it. That's fine too.
Well, Alder Verveer, are you moving to approve or are you moving to table?
Again, I would be happy to move to grant with the capacity, the Streetery temporary capacity of 48.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. I hear a motion. I see a second from Mr. Cano Espina. Any discussion? Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alder Verveer, just to clarify, his proposed outdoor capacity, the way I see it on the application, I might be missing something and I apologize if I am, is 72. His current outdoor capacity is 36. Sorry.
He said, I'm reading this verbatim, and this is obviously awkward, and apologies to all of you. It would be a lot easier if he was in the meeting and I'm not the go-between. It's getting a little frustrating, to be honest. So, and he's not the only registrant that's been calling and texting me saying they're having trouble getting into the meeting tonight. But anyway, he says, quote, I apparently forgot how to do the math when I did the application. We have always been 24 outside. We want 48 as the area doubled. Thank you. And he keeps saying, I only registered to comment if needed. I don't know, Joe, if that meant that he didn't get a link, or I presume you sent him an email.
No, he still gets a link.
He just said, once again, this is very awkward. Apologies to everybody. He's obviously listening to us as we speak. He says, current is 24. We want 48, please. This is all exterior.
All right. Assistant City Attorney.
So obviously he asked for, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Chair. He obviously asked for 72 in error as I'm looking at the application, as Mr. Fletcher's pointed out. And 72 was not accurate. He simply wants 48, not 72 outside.
Do you know what he was approved for via the Streetery? Mike?
I could go back and find the emails from street vending staff. Is that what you're asking, Attorney Zillivi?
Right, because I think we have to go with whatever number they determined, because they're the ones that determine what the capacity can be under the Streetery program.
Yeah, Jim, do you have that? I literally have 100-something emails, probably in one last week, about Streetery, because staff copies the alders on all correspondence relating to this. So I don't know if I'll be able to find that quickly. Do you have it, Jim?
I don't have it offhand. I'm looking. We have it in a mix between, sometimes people email it to me, sometimes people email to the licensing inbox. So I don't see it in mine, so I'll have to search a little further in the licensing inbox, see if I can find it.
Okay. While he is looking for that, did you have any other questions, Assistant City Attorney Zillivi?
I did not.
Okay. Mr. Cano Espina.
I second the motion. I think the 48 is appropriate number, but do we need a language saying it is or the number that the other committee approves, and then we can just go with that, whatever it's less, the same way that we do with other capacities that we said these or the number that the fire department approves, whichever is less.
Assistant City Attorney Brist.
I would think that would be a good way to handle this, to go with, if you've done that in the past, particularly, this could work, is go with the number that's the lowest, what was approved or what was requested. But it seems to me we can move it. These are temporary extensions of the outside capacity, and we want to have it revert back to what was the legal capacity before this program was started. And we're not dealing with that issue at this point. We're dealing with the issue of the temporary extended capacity.
Yeah, and if there is already a system for somebody to look at exactly what the capacity for that that business is, then allow that committee or that group to do that. We're just approving that the capacity can be expanded.
Attorney Zilvey explained that this street vending people are the ones who are setting the capacity for the exterior. And if that's the group doing it, that would be an appropriate number for us to accept.
That will be my recommendation.
I do have an email with the approval from the street vending coordinator. However, this one's it was an interesting one because it was the whole 100 block of East Main was approved in mass. So I'm not seeing anything specific to just this applicant. So I don't have the number.
Alder Carter, then Alder Verbier.
When I'm looking at his current capacity outside, which was 36, and he's asking for 48, is only 12 more. And I think that's reasonable in this case where we are unable to I verify this information because of the mass email that Jim received. So I would move to grant this and suggest that people use a calculator when they start adding up.
We already have a motion before us to approve with a capacity of 48.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Cool. So Alder Verveer.
Thank you. I found the same email that Mr. Verbick found, and unlike most of the applications, there were a couple of blocks, East Main, West Main, South Pinckney Street, where all of the businesses got together and filed a global application to the street vending coordinator, and that was the case with the 100 block of East Main Street. So I do have an email confirming full approval as presented, but it doesn't have a breakdown as to what every single establishment's capacity is because they have approval to take over the entire parking lane on this block. I'll also say that the applicant in a text message just told me that he's re-registered, and perhaps now you could hear from him if there are any questions.
At this point, we have the motion before us to approve this with a capacity of 48, which is the number that the applicant asked for. So does anyone have any further discussion of this motion before we vote? Hearing none. Anyone in opposition to approving an outdoor capacity of Maduro for the duration of the Streetery program? Anyone opposed to that, indicate by raising their hand so we can have a roll call vote. I see no opposition. So Mr. Verbick, please record approval of item 16. That was moved by Alder Verveer and seconded by Mr. Cano-Espina. And next up is item 17, Streetery extension of premises for Johnny Delmonico's. Mr. Verbick already told us that this is the same situation as item 16. Mr. Cano-Espina.
Move to approve.
Second.
Approve. A second from Ms. Westra. Any discussion? Hearing none. Anyone? Oh, Mr. Fletcher.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. More of a technical question than anything else, and for the applicant. So I know Marigold has given is the landlord, and all the Revere probably knows this. Is the landlord the same for Johnny Delmonico's and Marigold? Okay, and the landlord's
correct, Mr. Fletcher. It's urban land interest.
Great. Okay, I just wanted to confirm. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving item 16, Streetery extension of premises for, or sorry, item 17, Streetery extension of premises for Johnny Delmonico's. Anyone in opposition, please raise your hand. Seeing none, Mr. Verbick, please record a unanimous vote for item 17. Next up.
So for item 16, we did figure out the problem. The email that he entered with his first registration is not a valid email.
That would certainly do it.
Yep.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, next up, item 18, Streetery extension of premises for Argus Bar and Grill, right by Maduro. Mr. Kano Espina.
Move to approve.
Your motion to approve from Mr. Kano Espina, second from Mr. Astra. And is there any discussion? Hearing none. Anyone in opposition of item 18, Streetery extension of premises for Argus Bar and Grill, please indicate by raising your hand. I see no opposition. Mr. Verbick, please record an affirmative vote for item 18. Next up, item 20, change of licensed premises for Visions Nightclub. What are we looking at here, Mr. Verbick?
I don't have anything new from last week on this.
Okay. Let's see. Committee, what is your pleasure?
Assistant City Attorney Zilvi's trying to get your attention.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just looking for the hands. Assistant City Attorney Zilvi.
Hi, I asked you to refer to this meeting so that I could reach out to Mr. Brown to find out what he wanted to do. And I called him a couple of times. His phone does not allow voicemail messages, or was not at the times I called. I also sent him an email and never got a response to the email. So at this point, I think it would be appropriate to place it on file.
Thank you, Assistant City Attorney Zilvi. Mr. Kano Espina.
I would move to place it on file, and then I have a question.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do I hear a second? Mr. Fletcher, what's your question, Mr. Kano Espina?
So does this business hasn't been operating for a while now? Did I remember correctly that they haven't paid for their licensing? Their alcohol licensing, is that correct?
That's correct. And they also, I believe, still have delinquent personal property tax, which is another reason the license would be withheld.
Okay. So there is nothing on us to do other than place it on file, because we just need to wait for them to do something for us to make a decision. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Grady.
Okay, they don't have a liquor license, and I guess my question is, why are we considering them? There's no liquor license. They're not anything that we should be concerned with. They're not operating.
This is an application that came in while they did have a valid liquor license, and we referred it a couple of times.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, the motion for item 20, change of licensed premises for Visions Nightclub, is to Mr. Grady. Do you have another question?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. The motion for item 20 is to place this item on file without prejudice. Any Anyone opposed to that, please indicate by raising your hand. I see no hand, so Mr. Verbick, please record a unanimous ruling placing item 20 on file without prejudice. Item 21 is a change of licensed premises for Rigby Pub and Grill. We have a registrant in support who wishes to speak. Are they with us?
There's an Angie with us. I'm guessing this is the registrant.
Yes, that's me, if you can hear me.
Maybe speak up a little bit, please.
You hear me?
No, that's great. Excellent.
Okay.
So tell us about this application, please.
Sure. So we usually do a lot of private parties downtown. And because of the health and safety restrictions in Dane County because of COVID, we lost all of our private parties indefinitely. So in an effort to provide that surface or in a safe space for groups, we're looking to expand to the rooftop. Our landlord's on board with it. I've talked to our neighbors as well, and they're on board with it. So I'm just coming to the ALRC first to discuss it and see if and how we could do this.
When you said that the landlord has said they're okay with it,
yeah,
would you actually have a change to your lease indicating that you formally have control over the rooftop space?
I have a verbal agreement with him, but we can definitely make that amendment to our lease and get that in writing.
Okay. If this is approved, and you would need to do that, or if this were to be approved, you would need to do that, and you would need for it to state not merely that you have use of that space, but that you have exclusive control of it.
Okay.
Meaning that other tenants in the same building would not be able to use that space because it's yours.
Okay.
Okay, Alder Carter.
Yes, has there been any building inspection to determine how many people can be on the rooftop?
Nope, we haven't done that yet. I just came to you guys first. We did reach out to the inspection people early last week, but I'm assuming with the holiday and stuff, people were just not getting back to me. So yeah. I definitely intend on getting that and talking to the fire inspector as well and making sure that everything is on par for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Landgraf.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the applicant as a follow-up to the chairperson's question about exclusive use. Is the rooftop right now used by anyone or any tenants in the building?
No, I mean, other than us going out there to get some sun once in a while, no, it's not. It's not exactly how you would picture a rooftop. So you walk out a door and you have an office to your left, but it's kind of an L shape. In order to get to an actual, like, what you would think of as a normal rooftop, you would have to go up another ladder. So it's far away, wouldn't have any other access to any other rooftop. There is about 4.5 foot ledge, 2.5, 3 feet wide that goes around the whole edge of the roof already as it sits.
Okay. So getting exclusive use, you don't think will be a problem from the landlord?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landgraf. Next is Ms. Westra and then Mr. Kino-Espina. Did I click the wrong thing? Ms. Westra?
I actually don't have any questions at this time. I clicked inadvertently.
Not a problem. All right, Mr. Cano-Espino.
Yeah, so to get to the rooftop from your business, customers will have to, how do they access the rooftop? Do they have to go through your business? Do they have to go outside your business into common area and then go up to the rooftop? How do they, is there a way that they can go into another business or another business can come into the rooftop with alcohol?
No, so you would go into our second floor of our existing business and go out. You know how all the downtown businesses, or where ours is especially, it's kind of a maze once you get inside. So you go up to our second floor. You would exit to where the bathrooms are, and there's either a stairway that takes you straight up to the roof. Otherwise, there's an elevator that takes you right up there. So no other main street businesses would be able to reach that without going through our business. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so can you explain the elevator? So the elevator is only part of your business. Nobody can access that elevator and then go up to the rooftop?
They can, but they would have to have a key. So we only actually would use that elevator if we had guests that had to use a wheelchair or elderly customers. And sometimes we do have to use the elevator for private parties because of that. So that's the only reason the elevator would be running.
So you're the only one that has control of the elevator, none of the other tenants have control of the elevator.
Machetes also has, but we both have keys to it. So we always have a protocol where we lock it as soon as we're done using it. So they have produce that they have an office on the second floor, and they sometimes use that to go up there. And I think they have a storeroom with liquor up there as well or something, but they use it as well.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Argus does or not. I would have to check into that.
Okay. And for the alcohol, for taking the product up there, would the alcohol go through a common area?
No. Alcohol would come, so we would so our second floor has a bar already in it. We would take the alcohol then to our customers, that none of the customers would be able to walk anywhere other than be on the rooftop or not be. Does that make sense? So we would take the alcohol to them. They would be unable to leave and go anywhere else with it.
So they cannot walk out with the alcohol to the street or get that elevator or whatever. It will be controlled with somebody upstairs?
Correct. And we will always have a person on specifically for the rooftop. So no one else would be able to come up there that was not meant to be up there.
It will be private parties because I'm guessing you don't want, you're asking for 100 total. You already have 50. So is this just 50 more up in the rooftop and the other 50 are in another part of your business?
Our total indoor capacity is 148, I believe. We're looking for probably another 50 more, but again, that would be on fire. When I talk to the fire inspector and the building inspector, we want to make sure that's safe.
So what I see in the information that I see here is that you already have 50 outdoor capacity.
Oh yes, I see what you're saying. Yep. Yes, correct.
Where is those 50?
That is in the extended Streetery. So we're on East Main Street. You were talking about Maduro and Argus today. So Maduro, like you said, had 48. We have 50 for outdoor.
For outdoor in front of the street?
Yes, sir.
Got it. And then so the other 50 that you will be asking for will be 50 in the roof is what I'm hearing.
Yes, correct. And that would be, again, so based on what the fire chief says.
Based on the fire truck, but you're not asking to have 100 up there?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Okay, and based on like safety and make sure people can get out and all those things, you may have less than 50.
Correct, yes.
Okay, and you're saying it's only like the people that are going up there will be one private party. Everybody's related. It's not like the outery where, 3 people can come in and then 6 people can come in and stuff like that. This will be all one bubble.
I mean, it's like any other party. Yeah. So I understand what you're saying. Yeah. So it will be one event or one party. When people arrive they show up late sometimes or whatever. So there might be some stragglers. Yeah. But yes, yes.
That is one, like, if people are doing what they're supposed to do about keeping within your bubbles, there will be one bubble of like, cousins and whatever, and then just be there. Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yes, correct.
You're not going to be like, oh, I have another 50, so I can put, 10 more people there and then 10 more people over there that are from different parties.
No, that's not what we're asking to do at all.
Okay, and you would be okay with that restriction that in the license that says that this will be just for private events of one, all members there are coming from the same event?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Angie, can you, I know you want it for the duration of the pandemic, and that's amorphous, amorphous in many respects right now, right?
Yeah.
Did you have like were you thinking at least up until kind of the existing Streetery extension is concluded on October 25th? Just help me in terms of what your best case scenario in this. What were you hoping for?
Right. Good question. So I think that what would be fair if we were to be able to get this through would be the same amount of time as the Streetery. I don't foresee us being able to utilize this space for the winter anyway. And then we would, if we wanted the space for everyday use, we would come back, or everyday party use, we would come back and talk to the ALRC again about that would be something different, and we would talk to you guys about that.
And let me think longer term beyond the pandemic, just to ask, is there any interest in having this be a permanent sort of ask on your end? And I know you may not have talked to kind of various entities about that, but just from your own personal perspective.
I mean, yeah, I'd love to keep the space permanently. We had talked about it. Then the previous years just started working on things to move in that direction. But right now I'm just looking to subsequent and create a space that we had already had. And then I would probably more than likely approach again next spring to have a more permanent solution to that. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Committee, Alder Verveer.
Thank you. Angie, I do have a couple of questions for you, even though we previously discussed this application. So first of all, to clarify the easy one that you already agreed privately to me as a condition, the condition that I would propose is that staff must monitor the rooftop deck at all times it is being utilized. You have no objection to that, I presume, still?
Absolutely not. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Okay, great. And you already agreed to the condition that rooftop may only be used for private events only, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, great. So I guess my couple of questions would be, as you probably remember, you and I talked about this proposed use at least a year ago, well before the pandemic. And prior to that, your landlord, who always wants to help out his tenants, Cliff Fisher, as promoting the use to me even before you and I talked about it. In fact, Cliff gave me a tour of the space when we were attending one of the Capital Neighborhoods events at the Rigby. And he gave me the tour and said, look how great this would be for expansion of the Rigby, because you are so popular with your private events. And us alders on the committee are well aware of that personally, since the We've tried using the Rigby more than once. We've successfully used it at least once for our Common Council holiday party, and you are very popular. With all that said, are you really asking for your approval tonight to only be temporary? Because it seems to me that if the committee is comfortable, you might as well just seek a permanent expansion of your licensed premise as far as we're concerned and the Common Council is concerned, when this would be on the before the Common Council in a few weeks. Because as you and I have discussed privately, you still will need the approval of city zoning. And I don't believe that, but I could be wrong, that the zoning administrator will interpret this as qualifying under the Streetery program. So I think you'll have to go ahead, as you and I have discussed in the past, and apply for a conditional use permit and be approved by the Plan Commission for this exterior food and drink on private property. And so if that's the case, and you'll have to go through that process in any event, which will take probably perhaps 60 days, I hate to say, but if that's correct, that you're not eligible for Streetery on a rooftop deck in this scenario, do you really want us to only approve you during the life of the Streetery program?
I see what you're saying. So it would be redundant then, since there's no real benefit to just asking for during COVID for anybody, if there isn't any. I thought that maybe it would be a quicker, easier process, since it would be just asking for that time frame. But now hearing from you, I agree that if able, I would ask to have it permanently.
Yeah, and I'm obviously not zoning administrator Matt Tucker. It's up to his determination, and I certainly wish you the best in attempting to use the rooftop for events as soon as possible, although I doubt if you're getting a lot of event inquiries these days, given social distancing requirements and so forth.
Right.
But anyway, from my perspective, perhaps if my colleagues on the committee tonight are comfortable with us signing off on it, as you and I talked about earlier privately, Angie, ALRC is perhaps more user-friendly and a less expensive application fee than the Plan Commission is, it was wise of you to start here and make sure that the LRC was permissive. But anyway, so I personally don't have a problem with you having the approval permanently, knowing that you'll need zoning approval, and with that usually comes their own conditions in terms of how late at night the space can be used, and no amplification. Those are kind of routine things that zoning puts on these uses that we often don't delve into, knowing that the Plan Commission staff will routinely request conditions relating to time of use and amplification.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the guidance. I think that is probably a better avenue.
So for example, on your change of premise application that's before us, to not interpret your phrase during the pandemic to mean that you only want temporary approval from us tonight.
Right. So if we could change that to permanent.
Yeah. Speaking of amplification, would you want to have amplification on the rooftop?
No, I was actually thinking about doing a turntable out there, because I think that'd be cute. And that's pretty quiet.
Okay. All right, I think those are all my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I will just point out, since my colleagues asked really good questions of Angie about this, that as I mentioned earlier, the landlord did give me a tour, and I can confirm that, of course, this space is completely accessible to the Rigby second floor private party space. So anyway, and also confirm obviously that the landlord is in full support, which I think was one of the initial questions as well. As I say, I think it was Mr. Fisher's idea to take advantage of this rooftop deck.
Thank you, Alder Revere. All right, we have no one in the queue. Do I hear a motion? Oh, Mr. Cano Espina.
I wanted to make a motion to approve with conditions, but I was hoping that Alder Revere can actually add the conditions that he was already talking about. My condition was
perhaps Alder Revere, would you like to make the motion?
And I can
got conditions ready.
Thank you. I do have the two conditions that I had in mind in front of me, certainly. So I would be happy to move approval with the following two conditions. First, that the rooftop deck may be used for private events only. And second condition, staff must monitor the rooftop deck at all times it is being utilized.
Second.
And then just state the obvious further, if I might, that the motion would be to permanently extend the licensed premise with the full knowledge that zoning and fire department will have to sign off on it, including what the actual allowed occupancy would be, as is always the case, in terms of the maximum.
Yeah, that was my understanding, and those were the two restrictions that I had, but I didn't know if you had another one. So yes, second.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Alder Verveer, would you be interested in also making this contingent upon the applicant sharing a copy of a lease addendum with someone from the clerk's office, indicating that they have exclusive control of the premises in question?
Certainly, I would have no objection to that. I would further say that if there was a diagram, that would probably also be very illustrative, because unless I'm missing it, I did not see again, I know the space because I've been through it more than once and been out on the rooftop deck more than once now, but I don't know if any of you have an interest in also requiring a drawing of exactly what this looks like. And if one was submitted, I don't see it in Registar.
I will email you guys that right after this meeting.
Excellent. Okay, committee, you have a motion before you to approve item 21, a change of licensed premises for Rigby Pub and Grill, approving that change in perpetuity with conditions listed by Alder Verveer. Any further discussion of this item? I see no hands. Anyone who would not like us to register a unanimous vote in support of this, please raise your hand. Seeing no hands, Mr. Verbick, please record the affirmative vote for item 21. Next up is item 22, a change of licensed conditions for Garver Events. And we have a registrant. We have two registrants, one of whom wishes to speak, Dan, with no last name provided, and I don't see a Dan in the attendee.
He had an older version of Zoom, so I had to promote him to a panelist. He should be there now.
Yeah,
yep, I'm here. Hello.
Can you state your full name for the record, please?
Daniel Smith.
Excellent. So, Daniel, please tell us what we're looking at here.
Sure. We are just hoping to make an addendum to allow some amplified music for ambient background music and also a few live performances, as well as to expand our hours on weekends.
Excellent. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicant, Mr. Fletcher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dan, how many days a week are you thinking? Just ongoing ambient sound, I'm assuming?
Correctly, just during the hours that we're open. Currently, we're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Thursday and Friday, just 4 o'clock until approximately 9 o'clock. And then Saturday and Sunday, we are open from 11 a.m. until 9 p.m. And hoping to push those hours a little bit later.
And I think your goal, as I kind of read your application and the SASE letter, just to clarify, is to just improve the overall experience. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you know, I'm sitting here talking to you guys as a representative of Garver Events, but right now, really, the patio kind of represents all of the businesses within Garver that are able to provide some sort of service out there. So that's includes, you know, Ledger Coffee, Ian's Pizza, and Cosa as well. So we're just trying to create an environment that we can safely have people and allow them to have a really enjoyable experience while they're there.
And then again, the SASE letter talks about the test that you ran, right? A little bit. Can you go into just a little bit more detail with the committee in terms of the decibel testing that you did or demonstration? I see that it's mentioned in several of the pieces of correspondence that are attached to this Register item.
Sure, we've actually now held 4 different tests. You know, just to accommodate the different neighborhoods and some of the residents in those areas, where we set up an amplified sound system, notified neighbors, and we played music at what we consider to be the, you know, optimum, maximum level of sound for if we were going to be having live music playing on the patio at any given time, which I believe, I don't have the number in front of me, but I believe it's 80 decibels is what we're asking.
90, Dan.
90.
Dan, it's 90.
90 decibels.
90 for live and 60 for ambient background noise.
Yeah. So we played at that 90 decibel level from where music would be playing on the patio, and asked neighbors and people in the area to listen, you know, from their residents or from areas that they think it might be a concern for the music to be you know, a little bit of pollution for the neighborhood. And we got a really good response back from just about everybody that we talked to.
Dan, how many people in total attended the 4 tests, would you estimate?
That's a great
Well, the
question.
first one, Dan, that you weren't at had 5 people. So the other 3 you did.
Yeah, the other 3. So the first one that we did was with the SASE neighborhood, which included Alderperson Rommel. And then we've done a couple of subsequent ones with the Starkweather Creek neighborhood. The first test, we targeted specific homes that are closest to Garver. And then we followed up with tests via conversations that I've had with Grant Foster to kind of squash any problems that people brought up directly to him after that first test.
Yeah, so those first 2 tests, I believe, would have been 13 or 14 people total. And then the last 2 tests were almost for individual people.
So you think overall probably around 20 to 25 folks participated?
Yeah, I'd say 20 is probably a good guess.
For sure.
And then, and you would say that, just to clarify, Bethany, I think you had indicated that it was 60. The letter says proposed to be no louder than 70 decibels for ambient sound.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
Is
So
it
yeah.
just to ask?
Yeah, so we were testing the ambient between 60 and 70.
And then in terms of the letters that we received, that you know, I'm assuming that a template was provided, and if someone was supportive, they were asked to fill out that they were encouraged or whatever to fill out the template. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Very good. I think that is all my questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Mr. Cano Espina.
So I wanted to say that I really like the approach of doing testing, of making sure that you involve the community, involve the elders, and take the kind of step-by-step process to make it happen. So I just wanted to say that, you know, for you and for other businesses that want to ask us to do changes, this seems to be a really good approach. I wanted to have the opportunity to say that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Cano Espina. Mr. Landgraf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to review a couple of things just to make sure I completely understand what your ask is and what types of conditions might be placed on the license as a result of this. But you're going to use the amplified music as background for the most part. So as far as anyone performing that would be or any groups, the limit that their music would be set at would also be this 70.
I believe the letters said that live music would have a limit of 90, which is the typical limit placed on many neighborhood festivals. That's where we got that number from, and also the number that we tested at. So live performers would be able to go up to 90, and then like an iPod or iPhone plugged into a speaker would have a limit of 70, is our proposal.
Okay. And I know you had a lot of background, and to second Mr. Cano Espina's comments, I think it's great to field test this. But you field tested the 90 as well as the 70?
Yeah, we actually primarily tested the 90.
Okay. And this sounds like a very technical question, but it comes from years of being on the ALRC and dealing with music in neighborhoods. But did the 90 include a lot of heavy bass?
Yes, we actually had a request for rock music. I believe we were doing some AC/DC.
Well, you picked a good one.
So we tested both AC/DC, and then we anticipate that that a lot of the background live music will end up being bluegrass. So we tested both bluegrass and then heavier rock like AC/DC, though as the person programming, I don't really intend to program anything that heavy.
Okay.
I guess you never know.
Well, that's true. And could you remind me again of the hours that the hour? I'm not particularly concerned about the 70, but the 90 level. What would be the maximum time limit and numbers of days in the week where there could be performers that would be up at that level?
Yeah, so we discussed with the neighborhood and the alders and people in the neighborhood that we would end music a half hour before closing, with closing not ever being later than 11 p.m. So that would be 10:30, and we discussed all nights, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't know that we would plan on doing that on Sunday night, but that was what we proposed to the neighborhood when we were having both formal and informal discussions with them, a half hour before close, any day that we're open.
Well, this question is really, again, based on years of experience on the ALRC where things have started one way and have kind of moved in a different direction. But how do you contemplate being able to deal with a situation where, let's say, you are at the top level for all the times that you're open on as many days that you can do it, and you start getting some pushback from residents saying, you know, I was kind of okay with a couple of these, but seems like, you know, 4 days a week I'm listening to this and it's always the loud version, and it's getting to be a little much. Have you had any discussions with the neighborhood or the alders or your group internally about how you'll process that and be able to potentially accommodate some pushback from the neighborhood?
I can answer that question.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
My cell phone number is now programmed into the phones of most of the neighborhood, and you know, I've told them to reach out to me with any comments, questions, or concerns, and have kind of put my own personal guarantee that we want to be great neighbors and make this a situation that's good for both the businesses at Garver and also a good situation for the neighborhood. So I don't think that we're going to have an issue dealing with people. We're definitely willing to work with people, and we, you know, me and Bethany will be there anytime there's a band playing, and we'll be able to essentially shut anything down if we have to. That hopefully that never becomes the case, but we'll be able to make those adjustments day to day as needed.
Yeah, I think it's also important to mention that they can't hear it. So, I mean, this was the reason we did the sound testing. When we're doing sound testing and in the neighboring neighborhood, people are asking, is it playing yet? A pretty good sign that they can't hear the music.
Which means that if they can't hear it at all, they won't care how many hours you're doing it.
Theoretically, it would be hard to complain if you can't even tell when it's happening.
And my last question is, when you were setting up the decibel levels and doing your testing, do you have equipment that you're going to be able to have on site that's going to easily be able to deal with what the sound level is if there is a complaint that comes in and PD needs to respond? You know, it's always a question of, well, how loud is loud, or at what level are we at? How do you propose to monitor it?
Yes, so Dan, I believe we all have decibel meters on our phones now. After doing this. So we're able to monitor that way. And I think if we needed to purchase further equipment to make sure we're adhering to the conditions, we would do so.
Okay. Those were my questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Landgraf. So, committee, what is your pleasure? Any further questions for the applicant? Any discussion? Would someone like to make a motion? Oh, Ms. Westrap, sorry.
Move approval.
Your motion to approve, a second from Mr. Grady. Any discussion? Hearing Mr. Fletcher. Mr. Fletcher, I think you're muted.
Thank you. Just to clarify, what conditions are you approving? Because, and the reason I bring this up, the change of conditions wording is different, but with what's being requested slightly versus what SARC has approved. And the difference really comes in terms of SARSI's is like a cap, right? It's at no point shall you be exceeding 70 or 90 decibels for the respective things. The request is like an average of decibels at a certain point. So just clarifying.
I'm moving the request.
Okay.
Conditions.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Mr. Fletcher?
I think the only friendly amendment I'd make is to the wording of like what was requested, all outdoor space in a licensed premises instead of space the second time in that sentence, just a technical thing for Jim.
Ms. Westra, cool with that?
That's fine.
Mr. Grady? Excellent. Okay. Mr. Landgraf.
Yeah, going back to my questions, and again, I applaud the applicant's due diligence here on trying to figure things out. But I think for those members of the LRC that have been on the committee for a while, sometimes it doesn't quite work out the way that people had planned, and it's always difficult for residents, especially. If it's something that's coming through the neighborhood association to kind of get their oar in the water. So I'm wondering if since this is a new request, and I'm only raising it, I'm not making it because this is my last meeting and it really is something you all would deal with in the future. But I'm wondering if there might be some interest in reviewing this at some point in the future. And just double checking with everybody to make sure that things are working the way that everybody thought they would, because adding music in a residential neighborhood, unfortunately, from my experience on being on the LRC, has turned out to be a problem more times than it has been successful. So if I were staying on the committee, I would certainly add a condition that this come back at the time of license renewal for review to make sure everything's working the way everyone contemplated.
Thank you, Mr. Landgraf. Any further discussion?
Can I just get a quick clarification? So my understanding is the request, as on the agenda says, remove no amplified sound condition, which we currently condition number 3, and then to change outdoor space closing time from 10 to 11 Fridays and Saturdays, which would be the second condition. Is that correct?
Ms. Westra?
Can you repeat that, Jim?
So
you kind of faded in and out. I'm sorry. And then I got,
So as it's written on the agenda, the request is to remove no amplified sound condition, which is condition number 3, and to change the outdoor space closing time from 10 to 11 Fridays and Saturdays, which involves item number 2, or condition number 2. So it would be changing condition number 2 to all outdoor space and licensed premises shall close by 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday, and then there will be what is currently condition. There will no longer be what is currently condition 3 that says there will be no amplified sound outdoors.
So let's add a condition with the 70 and 90% of what the sound for. Sorry, my brain is not working anymore tonight. A condition for amplified sound, ambient sound cannot exceed 70 decibels. Live music cannot exceed 90 decibels. And live music music must end a half hour before close.
So the condition number 3 will now be outdoor amplified sound will be limited to 70 decibels or 90 decibels for live music, and live music must end a half hour before close?
Yes. Okay. Or music must end a half hour before close.
Music, okay.
Okay. Did that give you everything you need, Mr. Verbick?
It does.
Okay, Mr. Fletcher.
Yeah, just related issue, and maybe it's a question for Captain Donahue. So I'm looking at condition, and I'm just cleaning up the license as we go. So item 5 was a parking management plan presented prior to the renewal of the license in 2020.
I am attempting to unmute Captain Donahue.
I'm sorry, I'd stepped away for a second. Can you repeat what the question was of me?
Sure. The 5th condition that we placed kind of initially on the license was that the licensee must develop a parking management plan acceptable to the East District Captain and the Transportation Director prior to renewal of the license in 2020. Are we aware if that occurred? I guess if it did, I would suggest removing that at this time.
I don't know, but I can send a quick text message to see if Captain Nelson can answer that.
I had asked about this on the 18th of last month, and Captain Nelson said they did meet about it, and the transportation director said there had been some interaction, but he had not seen the latest parking management plan, and he asked a member of city staff to forward it to him to review, and that was the last I heard about it.
Can I ask the applicant, Mr. Chair, where the parking management plan is exactly?
Yes, so it has been approved as of last week.
By both the East District Captain and the Transportation Director?
Yes.
Thank you. I would propose, or I'd propose to Ms. Wester and Mr. Grady that we add on striking condition 5, contingent upon maybe Jim confirming that with those individuals before the city council meeting. Is that acceptable to both of you?
It's acceptable to me, yep.
Excellent. Anything else, Mr. Fletcher?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any further discussion? Mr. Verbick, can you remind everyone, please, what the motion is on agenda item 22, change of licensed conditions for cover events?
Sure. The motion is to approve by changing condition number 3. By changing condition number 2 to now read all outdoor space in the licensed premises shall close by 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday, and change condition number 3 to read outdoor music shall be limited to 70 decibels or 90 decibels for live music. Music must end a half hour before close. And then condition number 5 shall be removed if I get confirmation from the transportation director that the parking management plan has been approved before the common council meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Verbick. Is there any further discussion on item 22? Hearing none, anyone opposed to a unanimous vote in support of this motion, please raise your hand. I see no hands. So Mr. Verbick, please indicate that number 22 is approved. We are now on to agenda items 23 and 26. 23 is a 21 plus entertainment license for the DoubleTree Hotel Madison East. 26 is a public hearing for a new license for the DoubleTree Hotel Madison East. And let's see, we have registrants here. Andrew Inman and Lynette Knutson. Can you please state your names for the record and describe your application?
Yeah, I'll go first. My name is Andrew Inman. I'm the Vice President of Development for North Central Group. Lynette Knutson. Lynette, you can introduce yourself. She is the agent.
I am Lynette Knutson. I'm actually the general manager also for the hotel.
Excellent. And can you please tell us what you're applying for?
So I'll start just very briefly. North Central Group, we have a 40-year history. We're one of Madison's largest hotel companies. Our latest project, we purchased brilliant timing right before COVID, the former Crown Plaza Hotel on East Washington Avenue. We're in the process right now of renovating, upgrading, and rebranding it to a DoubleTree Hotel. Our investment really stems from just our history here in Madison. East Washington Avenue is such an important gateway to downtown Madison. This particular area kind of serves the hotel serves an underserved neighborhood especially for meetings and events such as weddings, quinceañeras, other types of events. So the hotel itself will be fairly traditional full-service hotel with a restaurant, bar. In addition to that, we have a conference center that will host the special events that I mentioned. So we are requesting tonight both entertainment license as well as liquor license for the premises.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicants? No questions for the Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I go, Lynette and Andrew, to the security information that accompanies the entertainment license, can you talk about kind of more specifically your security planning around events, for instance, versus I think you've talked about overnight security personnel to maintain order throughout the hotel. What does kind of event security look like for you all?
So the only thing I'll add to this is I'm going to share a fun fact is Lynette actually very early in her career was a bartender out at the old Holiday Inn, I believe it was Pearls. And then with that setup, I will turn it over to Lynette and she can expand on the security plan for the premises.
Hi, so we will have overnight security at the hotel that will start at approximately 10 o'clock at night and go until like 7 o'clock in the morning. And then as far as for the events, we will have managers on duty throughout the course of any event that's happening in the hotel and ensuring that everything is compliant with our liquor license and the things that we need to do to make sure that nothing gets escalated.
Lynette, let me try and be more maybe specific. How many overnight security personnel on a regular basis are you going to have?
Our plan is one person, 7 days a week.
And then if you have an event, and I recognize, the kind of security personnel to event attendee ratios, right? Say you have an event of, say 100 to 200 people, what does the expansion on security personnel look like? Is there any? What's your thoughts there?
Well, because the events that we're going to have are going to be weddings, quinceañeras, like family reunions, things like that. I mean, I don't, just from my experience from doing this for quite some time, even with North Central and the other hotels that we have, I feel that based on our knowledge and our professionalism, that we don't need to hire security to be there for a wedding from, 3 p.m. when it starts until it ends at midnight. I feel that the training and the just what we would do on a normal basis, as far as, making sure that we're, cutting people off when needed and, doing those types of things. And I don't think additional security is needed because it's a wedding. It's like I said, it's a quinceañera with 15-year-old girls and some adults. So at this point, we're not looking at that we would have actual security in there for like a wedding event.
And I'll offer just our experience across our portfolio. I mean, we've got a sense of certain nights where there may be a more rowdy crowd, thinking downtown campus area with football Saturdays, things like that, where we do have relationships with private security firms where we can draw on them to bring them in to make sure that our guests are safe and the events are safe. So we do have those relationships, contracts in place if there are unique circumstances that we need to draw on.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Of Mr. Landgraf, then Alder Carter, then Mr. Cano-Espino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss anything in reading the material. But as far as events, you mentioned birthday parties and graduations and things like that. But would there be events where you would have any kind of live music?
The only thing I anticipate is that even now at the hotel that I just left, on occasion, a wedding will ask to have a band. Otherwise, typically, it's usually always a DJ.
Okay. And when you get the space remodeled or get the hotel remodeled, I'm sure you're going to be remodeling some of the community space that would support these events. What's your max capacity that you're contemplating you'd be able to handle with whatever kind of event it is?
So if it's going to be a wedding, the max capacity that we have for the space is 250 people. There are 10 different meeting spaces, but some of them are quite a bit smaller. So they're more like a boardroom or something that we traditionally probably use just for like a day meeting. There are a couple other ones as well that are smaller, but yet you could still put 80 people in them. But I don't envision those. I mean, we would definitely not have a band at anything like that. If it was a small, say it's a family reunion and they want to have a DJ in there, like that would be something that we would be able to accommodate in that smaller space. So basically about 250 in the actual ballroom itself.
And Mr. Landgraf, to clarify what's unique for a hotel, and we've, with previous applications through ALRC, what we've actually defined for the hotel and what we really need to is the premises itself is the entire hotel, inclusive of the meeting space, restaurant, bar, guest rooms. So the capacity that we've listed in our liquor license is actually 1,697. That's capacity of the entire building. So what Ms. Knutson has identified is really the maximum event space, contiguous event space. But what we are requesting is the ability for, with a liquor license specifically, so a guest can order a drink at the bar and take it back to their guest room. That's where the capacity, the total capacity is listed. One other quick note on the live entertainment, just having been through ALRC and some of the hot buttons that you have, is the event space is all indoors, so we don't have outdoor patios or event venues outside.
Well, and I'm glad you brought the issue up with regard to the defined premise, because and again, don't take this the wrong way, but some questions you get from committees are sometimes looking at a worst case scenario and just checking in with you to see how you're kind of thinking ahead with that. But a scenario where you could have 250 people with a band in your large area, and since the entire hotel is the premise, I'm not going to use the 1,600 number that you used, but even if you had another 250 people that were part of that party, they just weren't in the room where the band was, but they were elsewhere in the hotel, maybe in some of those other 80-person rooms that were down the hall that were set up to also accommodate the group. You're basically saying that you'd manage that with one overnight security guard?
Again, I think that depends on what the events are, but if they are all evening events, wedding, where alcohol is being served, I think those are the types of events where our management team recognizes and says we better get some private security on site tonight, just to expand our staff and what their capabilities are. At the end of the day, we're a hotel company. Our guests need to be happy. It's not just about the event guest. It's about the guest checking in, looking for a good night's sleep. That's what we sell. We sell sleep. So we are, very vested in controlling the situation and making sure that we've got appropriate staff in place.
And what you just discussed is frequently the kind of thing that the committee asks applicants to include in a security plan. So plan A is we got a 200-person wedding. Plan B is we got 500 people in the hotel that have some affiliation. Unless I missed it, your kind of discussion of security plan is more traditional hotel related than event related. And I'm wondering if you would be comfortable amending that security plan. Admittedly, per your discussion, it isn't something you'd use a lot, but it would be nice to know how you would approach planning for something that was bigger, even though it didn't happen all the time, but it could have the ability to overtax your traditional one person. And I let me just mention another thing as you respond to this, that from your experience in following ALRC issues in the past, a lot of times we've relied on the applicant to dial up the local district police captain when events reach a certain kind of structure, and talk to the Madison Police Department to make sure, number one, they know about the event so they can plan if they need to, but also to be able to work with you and figure out perhaps what that larger contingent of security might need to be based on what you're going to be hosting in the hotel.
Yeah, I think those are all very good points and consistent with how we operate. Our plan actually does identify that we will have overnight security personnel to maintain order throughout the hotel, but that is part of our internal arsenal, if you will, with relationships with private security in addition to our team members. We have on occasion, for example, the AC Hotel in downtown, we have had on staff private security, so they will be NCG, not private, but NCG personnel who are tasked with overnight security, but we'll expand that most definitely if the situation warrants it. As far as the police captain, it's one of the nice things about this process. Ms. Knutsen's coming as a GM from one of our Middleton properties, where she did have event space, did have relationships with the Middleton Police Department, and certainly had those types of communications. That's consistent with how we'll operate the DoubleTree, and through this process has been able to connect with the precinct captain and develop that relationship.
And can I just add, I did reach out to the police captain, and I forgive me, I forget his name, but we had talked because I had to let him know that we were doing the public meeting where everybody could come in if they wanted to, and I called him back, and we got to chatting, and he actually used to be one of the police officers that we had as security back in the early 90s when I worked at the hotel, and I would definitely reach out to him for anything that I would need to make sure that we would keep everybody safe, and would definitely keep him in the loop on anything that I felt we needed to have more security for.
So am I hearing you say that you think your plan, the way you've got it written, is fine, or that you would incorporate into your plan some of the things that you just discussed?
I think my only point was, I think that's inherent within, the general statement of making sure we've got appropriate security personnel, and that's consistent with how we operate. So I think everything we've talked about is certainly, we are comfortable with what we have written there. I think we're expanding on that as you've inquired, and just to give you more detail on how we handle those sorts of situations.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Landgraf, of Alder Carter, and then Mr. Kano-Espina.
I was going to move approval.
All right. With any conditions, and would that be for both items, 23, the 20 plus entertainment license, and 26, the alcohol license?
Correct.
Do I see a second? Mr. Grady. So we have a motion before us to approve items 23 and 26. Mr. Kano-Espina.
So I believe that this application is incomplete, particularly for the entertainment one. I don't believe that this is a security plan. I'm disappointed that they don't have a security plan. Saying that I will have an officer is not a security plan. There were clues given to them just now that they should amend it and put more information in it, and they decide not to. So I will be voting no for that part of the motion. The item 26, I believe, is fine for me, but is item 23 that I feel that is incomplete, and I cannot support the entertainment license based on that, particularly because we have done the same for other businesses where we said, look, this is not a full full security plan. You have to come back next month and give us a real security plan, or at a minimum, submit a security plan for the actual board with the Common Council. So I will encourage other members to vote no also on that, and kind of practice what we have practiced before on saying, look, this is not completed. You got to do something to reassure us, not just verbally, but actually in writing, that there is a security plan.
So, Mr. Kano-Espina, are you requesting that items 23 and 26 be separated, and that we vote on them individually?
That will be my request, if possible, and I would like to do a roll call for 20 for the entertainment license one.
By all means.
Thank you.
Alder Carter.
Yeah, so what? Okay, let me retract my motion. move item 2026. So seems like that one everyone's comfortable with. You want me to do it one at a time?
Yeah, let's, do we have a second for approving item 26? Mr. Fletcher? Okay. Thank you, Alder Carter. Any discussion regarding item 26, which is the alcohol license for the Doubletree Hotel Madison East? All right, seeing none. Anyone opposed to us recording a unanimous vote for item 26, the alcohol license for the Doubletree Hotel? Please indicate by raising your hand. I see no hands. So, Mr. Verbick, please record a unanimous vote for item 26. Alder Carter.
Yes, for I move item 23, the entertainment license, that the applicant submit a security plan with this recommendations from the ALRC prior to the Common Council meeting. And Jim would be able to tell them when the Common Council meeting, when this is coming up, so they can have it submitted. If they do not have it submitted by the Common Council meeting, then they should come back to the next ALRC meeting.
All right. Do I see a second for this motion? Mr. Cano Espina. All right. Any discussion? Mr. Landgraf.
Yeah, following up on Alder Carter's motion, just to make sure that I understand what she's saying. When you talked about security plan, you meant the traditional one that we've typically had where the applicant writes it up, they submit it to us, but they also run it past the local district captain to get the captain's input into it as well. So do we need to add the captain piece to your resolution?
That would be a friendly amendment.
Okay, Mr. Cano Espina approves.
If I could just add, when I revised the entertainment license application, previously what it said is attach a security plan, and we were almost always getting something very inadequate that didn't touch on any of the recommendations that security plan has. So when I revised this application, I had all the items that were asked to be touched upon in the security plan as part of the application itself and asked them to do that. So, I mean, it looks like they did answer all the questions, but whether those questions are satisfactory to the committee, I suppose, is a different question entirely.
Thank you, Mr. Verbick. I guess we may see comments about that sometime soon. Mr. Landgraf.
My hand should be down. Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay, so we have a motion before us to approve item 23 contingent upon a security plan. Mr. Verbick has provided some additional information that the application has been significantly expanded and may include the information that you need. It is up to you what you do next with this. So, is there any further discussion? Mr. Cano Espina.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the effort from the city clerk to try to help applicants to provide the information. I just believe that the information that they provided on the really nice effort from you and the form is not sufficient. So I think that they need to be able to go more in detail, basically with the conversation that we were having today, to put those things in writing of, we will have one person, but if we have a bigger event, we'll have more. We will call this agency. That I'm not gonna give you the answers here, but you already had some of those discussions, and I think that the idea of including, did you had a conversation? I don't see that as a question. Did you had a conversation with the captain of the district, and was this approved by them? I don't know if I'm missing that, Jim.
The captain did respond. Let me just bring it up real quick.
No, my question is that in the form? Did you had a conversation, and did you have, like, is that something that they can just add to this form? I don't see it in the form.
I guess I'm not following your question. Can you repeat it?
So you said that in your attempt to help people, you kind of asked some questions about what do you do. But in these questions, I don't see, did you met with the captain of the district? Did the captain of the district have any concerns? There is no question in this form about that. That was the only thing that.
Yeah, no, that's not, that question's not on here. The I think it's the ordinance has sort of guiding questions as far as what a security plan should have, and that's sort of the questions that are on the application as far as asking the applicant certain security questions. So the ones that what they filled out on the application is sort of the baseline from the ordinances that we have asked applicants in the past to submit as a security plan, and that wasn't happening. So they just became questions now on the application.
And I love the idea. I think the idea is very good. I just feel that they didn't fulfill all the answers correctly. So that's where I'm asking for them. The idea was amazing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cano Espina. Any further discussion before we vote on this item?
I just want to add for the applicants that the Common Council that this will go before is the August 4th Common Council.
Thank you, Mr. Verbick. Okay, so the motion before us is for item 23, 21 plus entertainment license for DoubleTree Hotel Madison East. And the motion is to approve contingent upon the applicant providing a satisfactory updated security plan to the clerk prior to the Common Council meeting, else this will come back to the next regularly scheduled ALRC meeting. Would anyone like us to have a roll call vote? If so, indicate by raising your hand. I see.
If I could just ask, so it's contingent upon the security plan. What is the approving conditions that must need to be met by this new security plan? And is it our office that's evaluating that, or the alders?
I have unmuted Alder Carter.
Yeah, I think that what we're looking for is confirmation from the captain of that area that he has been, that he has reviewed or discussed the security plan with the applicant. There were several recommendations that I heard, like having extra security on site when there is an event, so that the security for the guests is one, the security for the event does not have to leave one incident to run to another. So making sure that events have their own security and not waiting for something to happen. So I think that's what we're looking for. And I don't know if I've totally embraced what Tom said. Did I miss anything, Tom?
Mr. Landgraf?
Yep.
Fernando?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not used to working this side of the computer. Sorry about the delay.
Me neither.
Yeah, my primary concern about raising it was to get some confirmation that the applicant has sat down with the district captain, explained, the traditional event and then the non-traditional event, and making sure that the captain not just has read it, but the captain has approved it to the point that you like we typically would get an email from a district captain saying I've looked it over and it meets my criteria. So I think to Mr. Verbick's point, I understand why he asked the question. He's not the designated security expert. The district captain is, and my intent was not to go anywhere with a security plan that the captain isn't thumbs up on.
I will say that in the email that I'd sent to the alder and the police district captain, both sort of got back, and the police district captain said, I spoke with Agent Lynette Knudsen and do not have any public safety concerns with this license. And that's the extent of the email he sent.
Okay. Mr. Fletcher, and then Mr. Cano Espina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to maybe make a friendly clarification and see where we can get to with this. So approve that if it would be friendly to the maker and the seconder of the motion, that we would approve contingent upon the review and approval of the district captain prior to the city council meeting, as Jim outlined the dates. I think that keeps it the cleanest. We do want the captain to review the updated security plan. And I think, again, we've talked ad nauseum about suggestions for what could be included in that plan, specifically focusing on event management as an example.
All right. I'm seeing nods from Alder Carter and Mr. Cano Espina. So I think that we're good to go with that. Mr. Cano Espina, did you have any additional questions or comments?
Yeah, so my comment is to answer Jim's question. I'm also expecting that we have 3 elders in here, that they will look at this, and if they see that there is nothing that has changed, that they are the ones that are going to be the final decision maker. So it's not on you, definitely not on you to do that. I'm expecting that the elders will see it.
Cool. All right, thank you, Mr. Cano Espina. Any further discussion on item 23? Hearing none. Anyone opposed to agenda item 23, 21 plus entertainment license for DoubleTree Hotel Madison East being approved contingent upon a security plan? If you are in opposition or would like a roll call vote, please indicate by raising your hand now. Seeing no hands, Mr. Verbick, please record unanimous support for the motion. All right, that disposes of items 23 and 26. Next item is 24, a public hearing, new license for the Melting Pot. We've got Registrant Robert Arroyas. Oh, we have several registrants in support, available to answer questions, but not wishing to speak. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicants? Well, so perhaps to start off, will the applicants please introduce themselves and describe the basic concept behind their application?
Yes, I'll start. My name is Robert Arias, and I'm one of the new owners for the Melting Pot in Madison. We just purchased the location July 1st and are looking to transfer the license from the existing owner to ourselves. We're operating under a provisional license currently.
Okay. And Andrea Johnson?
She would be the agent. And so I believe the requirement is 90 days of residency in Wisconsin. We're almost there, but Andrea is the general manager of the restaurant. And so we've asked her to be the agent in the meantime.
Excellent. Ms. Johnson, can you introduce yourself so we recognize your voice?
My name is Andrea Johnson.
Thank you. Okay. Did I see your hand, Mr. Fletcher? Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify something that was said in the opening remarks, and I think I know the answer, but just to check, there is no business sort of relationship between you and the prior owners of the former business there, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a clean break.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Mr. Cano Espina.
Thank you. I just wanted to go over the hours of operation just to confirm that we have the same hours here. I see you're closing on Sunday at 9 p.m. Every other day is 10 p.m. and then on Fridays and Saturdays 11 p.m.
We've actually reduced our hours due to concerns with COVID. We're closing at 9 p.m. currently, Monday through Thursday. Friday and Saturday, we close at 10 p.m.
And those are the hours that you would like to have now, that you will stop selling alcohol at 10 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays, even though, maybe we, hopefully in January or February, we will be better.
We will reassess the hours of operation, but we took a look historically at the sales and the labor savings and believe that closing at these times are in our best interest in perpetuity.
10 p.m.?
That's correct.
And you will be okay with, God, I can't remember the word. No, is that a restriction? No. What is it called?
Condition.
Condition, sorry. With a condition saying that you will cease alcohol sales at 10 p.m. every day?
For now, yes. And if that were to change in the future, we'd contact the clerk's office or whoever's appropriate if we decided to expand the hours.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Cano Espina. What other questions do people have for the applicants? Any other questions for the applicants? Mr. Grady.
I just want to make a motion that we approve with the hours listed on the application.
I hear a motion. Is there a second?
I can second it with a friendly of changing it to closing at 10, like they're saying. So sorry, not closing, as ceasing the sale of alcohol as at 10, as they are saying today.
Right, that would be fine.
All right. So we have a motion to approve item 24, alcohol license for the Melting Pot, with one condition, that it cease sales of alcohol by 10 p.m. Any discussion of this motion? All right. Is anyone in opposition or would otherwise like to have us do a roll call vote? If so, indicate by raising your hand. Seeing no hands, Mr. Verbick, please record a unanimous vote in support of that motion. Thank you to the folks from Melting Pot. Next item is 25, public hearing, new license for Fugu Asian Restaurant. Rong Chen is here in support and is available to answer questions. Rong Chen, will you please introduce yourself and describe the concept for this establishment?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, this is Rong Chen. I'm the owner for Hui Xiang LLC, doing business as Fugu Asian Restaurant. And I'm renew the license because it's past due. At the first time, in the earlier March, when I received the first form, renewal form, and I sent it to the city. For some reason, they don't receive. And then when I resent another one, it was past due. So I had to get a new license.
I see. All right. So this is an application for a new license replacing an existing license that had not been renewed on time. Mr. Cano Espina.
Yes, it's basically the same questions about, the question is about time or hours. I believe that you may just have made a mistake in the application. You fill out the hours where food will not be available. You put like almost the whole day, like 11 to 9:30, 11 to 9:30. I'm guessing that is a mistake. You have food available the whole time, correct? Like most of the thing that you do is food.
Yes, it's correct. Sorry.
So what is that 9:30 that you put on Sunday? Is that when you're gonna stop selling alcohol?
Yes.
Okay. So you are open to 10, but you will stop selling alcohol at 9:30 on Sundays. And like basically you're gonna stop selling alcohol half an hour before closing every day.
Correct.
Okay, but you have food the whole time because you're a restaurant.
Oh,
So,
right. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I don't have any like if we can amend that in right now that the restaurant actually has food the whole time, that would be perfect. I don't have any concerns with the hours.
If I could add, so this is another license, just like the previous one, that they do have a provisional in which they're operating right now. And we've carried over, at least temporarily, the 3 conditions that were on the previous license. Number 1, alcohol sales shall cease by 10 p.m. on Sunday through Thursday and 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. Number 2, must meet the definition of a restaurant as defined by MGO section 38.02. And number 3, food must be available at all times.
Thank you, Mr. Verbick. Ms. Chen, do you have any concerns with those conditions being placed on your new license? Sorry, you're unmuted now. Do you have any concerns with those conditions being placed on the new license?
No, I don't.
Great, thank you. Mr. Fletcher, and then Mr. Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 brief cleanup items, I think. Question 25, and maybe this is for Jim. The percentages are different, the way at least I look at them on the agenda versus there's just like 2% other that we've got on the agenda versus what's indicated on the application. Is that just a clerical thing on our end, or where did we pull the extra 2 from?
That is a good question. I do not know. I'll have to look that up.
Okay. And then while Jim, you're looking that up, Ron, just a question for you. The Takumi Inc. is the overarching corporation, correct? Of which this LLC falls underneath?
Correct, yeah.
What other establishments or does Takumi Inc. have an interest in?
Sorry, I don't catch what.
Oh, sure, sorry. So question 20, right? Does the corporation, et cetera, hold any interest in any other alcohol beverage license or permit in Wisconsin? Do you have any other license? Does Takumi Inc. have any other licensed establishments in Madison or other places in Wisconsin?
That's the only one in Madison.
In the rest of the state?
No.
Okay. So you're saying Takumi Inc. does not have any other licensed establishments in the state of Wisconsin?
Correct. That's the only one at Eastside Madison.
Okay. Thank you for now. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher, Mr. Grady, and then Alder Verveer.
If I could just answer Mr. Fletcher's question before we go on to the next person. So I think what happened was there was an accident when this was entered onto the legislative file is whoever did it had pulled the ratio numbers from the previous license application. So that's the numbers that are written on the agenda tonight are from that previous license application. The new one should reflect 2% alcohol, 2% alcohol, 98% food.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verbick. Mr. Grady.
Yes, I just wanted to make a motion to accept with the 3 conditions that the clerk has read for us prior to.
All right, we have a motion for Mr. Grady and a second for Mr. Cano Espina. Alder Verveer.
Thank you. To go back to one of Mr. Fletcher's questions, perhaps the applicant didn't understand, but when I last talked to the applicant, Amanda, as she goes by her English name, Amanda, didn't you inform me that you indeed own a restaurant, Takumi Japanese Restaurant on East Town Boulevard? Didn't you remind me of that fact that you also have an East Side restaurant?
Yes, I do.
And that is Takumi, right?
Yeah, Takumi INC.
Was that your question, Mr. Fletcher? Does that shed light on your question, or do you wish to rephrase?
Yeah, that was. I think it was just my question was Takumi Inc. Has I think what you're trying to clarify is Takumi Inc. has the East Side restaurant and is the overarching corporation for this particular LLC, which oversees Fugu. I think is that the way you understand it? Alder Verveer? That's
the way I understand it. I don't know if you want further clarification from Amanda or not.
No, at this stage, I don't, unless there are specific concerns with the other establishment that you are aware of.
No, I know of no concerns with either of the establishments. In fact, I must say, although I certainly have no objection to continuing the 3 conditions, but Fugu certainly has had no incidents whatsoever that I'm sure Captain Donahue would concur in that analysis. And it is not a full license. It's only beer and wine, and they obviously close very early. So I just wanted to clarify that those conditions are all because of course, of their geographic location, not a reflection of their operation in any way, shape, or form, or for that matter, the predecessor restaurants in that space.
Great. Thank you, Alder Verveer. Any further discussion of item 25? All right, we have a motion before us to approve item 25, new license for Fugu Asian Restaurant, where the license will have the same 3 conditions that were on the previous license. Is there any dissent? Anyone who does not want a unanimous vote recorded, indicate by raising your hand, please. Seeing none, item 25 passes. Next item is item 27, public hearing, new license for the Boneyard. And last I knew, we did not have any registrants for this one.
Oh, we do have a registrant. Jeff Kuhl is here. Kuhl.
Excellent. So
If I could just address something real quick before the registrant speaks. So there is an email that was attached to this from Alder Foster that had referenced a informational meeting not happening. This is actually come from an administrative error in the clerk's office. So the applicant was informed that this application would be on the August ALRC meeting, and his orange sign reflected that. However, with the application was processed, it was put in the basket for the July meeting. So we noticed in the paper and sent postcards to the community saying it would be considered in July. So it had actually gone earlier than the sign indicated or that the applicant was expecting until I sent the email saying he would appear before the July meeting. So the fact that the applicant has not completed an informational meeting before this meeting is true, and it's not his fault. And so I don't know. I know in the past the committee has approved as long as they hold it before the council meeting. But again, this is all up to the committee. So I just wanted to clarify the comments that the alder made and that they are accurate and that this falls in the clerk's office as far as the applicant not having a meeting prior to this meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Verbick. Mr. Kano Espina.
So I am kind of between two places now. The alder is requesting to have the meeting. The meeting did not happen, not because the applicant is doing anything wrong. It just didn't happen. What did you say, Tim, about like approving it? What have we done before?
In the past with items like this, if everything else appears to be in order, we have approved or granted the license contingent upon the neighborhood meeting happening before the common council meeting. There's also an implied understanding there that the alders on ALRC, who will also be at the common council meeting, could have common council refer it back to us. And we wouldn't need to tell them they can do that. They can do that whether we tell them they can or not.
Right. Okay, perfect. Can we make that motion, or is there other people on the
Let's see what other people have to say first. Alder Verveer is in the queue. Speaking of, Alder Verveer. I clicked the wrong button, my bad. Alder Verveer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we haven't allowed the applicant the opportunity to speak. I'll just say, before we let him explain what his proposal is, if I'm reading the application correct, and we usually, we allow an introduction, but if we want to jump right to questions, and if I could ask the applicant, Mr. Chair, is the anticipated opening date still April Fool's Day 2021 as the application states?
Jeff Cool is the applicant. Please introduce yourself before answering Alder Verveer's question.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
We can.
Oh, great. Yeah, our plan is to open April 1st is our plan as of right now.
Can you start by saying who you are, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My name is Jeff Cool.
Excellent. All right, so the answer is yes to Alder Verveer's question. Next April.
And then further, and I'm sorry, kind of jumping ahead with a couple of quick questions here at the outset in terms of how we proceed because of this, administrative error, as it was called. But I also see in your application that you are hoping to offer live music. But so perhaps is that correct, Jeff?
Yeah, I think we had hoped at some point to have the opportunity to offer live music or acoustic music as part of our offerings at the business, yes.
So as my colleagues probably figured out where I'm going with the line of questioning is, perhaps then this question would go to Deputy City Clerk Verbick, but has there been an application filed for entertainment? All right, I guess I could ask you that, Jeff, too. Have you filed an application for entertainment yet?
I see Mr. Verbick shaking his head.
Yeah,
negative.
That's correct. We have not filed an application for entertainment yet.
So as you might know, under our ordinance, acoustic music is generally fine if it's one person, one musician. Mm-hmm. But several person acoustic performance or any sort of DJ or bands does require an entertainment license that is granted by our committee and the Common Council. So my thought was, given the clear recommendation that we have from the alder of the district, Alderperson Foster, that to refer you to our meeting next month in August. And if you're not opening until, perhaps the second quarter of the new year, and then further, if you are interested in live music, it just seemed to me that perhaps it would make sense to refer your alcohol application to our August meeting. And in the interim, have you apply for an entertainment license. And you probably heard the conversation we had about security plans and so forth with the new proposed DoubleTree Hotel. So you've already heard that discussion. But anyway, if you are pretty positive that you do want to have this be a live music venue, at least in part, perhaps that might be a path forward. Does that make sense to you? Would you share your thoughts on the timeline of our consideration of this application and perhaps a future entertainment license application?
Yeah, sure. I think that makes good sense. I think our interest in sort of moving forward with figuring out where we stood with the alcohol licensing would have more to do with we're building a new building on this parcel of land that we've purchased, and sort of wanted to make sure that we would have some opportunities for the type of liquor license that we're trying for here. And I think that in order to stay on our timeline of an April opening and working with the builder that we're working with, I think that was the reasoning for trying to get an answer on our liquor license sooner than later. And I guess my thought is, and I'm new to this, so bear with me, is that if we could potentially get approval for a liquor license and maybe not have the option for live music initially, but if we deem that that's something or a direction that we want to go, we would go through the process of applying for that entertainment license at a later date.
While I'm still unmuted, Jeff, I'll just appreciate that you want an answer sooner rather than later on the alcohol licensing, given the construction project that you just articulated. And obviously under the scenario I was proposing, you would be delayed a month because instead of the alcohol license being considered at the first Tuesday in August by the city council, it would be the first Tuesday in September, the day after Labor Day, under the timeline I laid out. My conflict is just that the alder of the district clearly asked for referral tonight. So let me ask you maybe one final question. Have you and Alderperson Foster actually had a conversation recently?
No, I have reached out to Alderman Foster on a couple occasions to talk and haven't been able to get him in person or get a return call, but I've been communicating sort of with voice messages and email to suggest, I guess, number one, that we were going to be a part of this meeting, and of course wanted to let him know. And I also just wanted to take time to chat with him in more detail about the business, but haven't had the chance to do that verbally with him yet.
Okay, thank you. No further questions for now, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder Verveer. Got Mr. Landgraf and then Alder Carter.
Yeah, Jeff, you're if kind of following up on Alder Verveer's questions and perhaps giving you some insight into some history of things at the ALRC, if especially since you are building a new building, which is in today's construction environment not a cheap event. But if your long-term business strategy includes the possibility of having live entertainment, and I see your outdoor capacity is proposed to be larger than your indoor capacity, and I don't know if you were thinking of live music outside or inside. All of those things would be good for you to have run up the flagpole, so to speak, with Alder Foster and with the district police captain, because again, this is friendly advice. What you don't want to do is get yourself caught in a situation where you need a liquor license 9 months from now or 9 months after you open for your establishment to remain viable. It's good to have covered it up front, either either you make the case for it or you set your business plan so that you're not going to have one, and then you can make decisions on your construction and other kinds of things. So to Alder Revere's point, I think although it may not be quite what you were hoping for, if you work quick like a bunny and get the various folks that need to get their oar in the water in a position to weigh in with the committee when you come back, whether it's next month or the month after, you would have a much more solid basis on which to be betting the future of your operation, especially if you're going to need live music and the revenues associated with those alcohol sales as part of your business plan. So again, I'm not making that as a motion. I'm just offering that as some friendly advice.
May I chime in one more time, please?
Mr. Landgraf, was that a question?
Yeah, we'll make it a question. So
in that case, answer it. Yes.
Oh, thank you. And I guess the main point I guess I want to make is the idea of having live music isn't central to this business at all. It's an outdoor dog park, a place for people to bring their pet, and that will have alcohol and beer as an option, both with an on-leash and an off-leash section. The idea of having live music would be completely secondary and not important to, if we were to never have that, it wouldn't be important to our business concept. I guess I was asked a question, and I guess we talk about down the road, it could be something that might make the business better. But if it were never to happen, that would be okay too. It's primarily a dog park that allows the sale of beer and alcohol. And I guess I just wanted to make that clarification.
All right, Mr. Landgraf, any further questions?
Nope.
All right, next up is Alder Carter and then Mr. Fletcher.
So I have two questions. So Jim, just say that this license gets approved. His business is not open yet. So how long can that license basically stay in your file until he opens his door?
Sure.
I thought there was a time limit on that.
There is. The statement of interest or statement of intent says he'll get the license issued within 180 days of the council granting the license. However, they can ask for an extension of 180 days pending like building plans. And we have had folks come back later and ask for extensions of that deadline if there's any sort of hold up with the building happening.
Okay, thank you. So this is a dog park with a bar, correct? So with your vision, and this question actually is to Jeff, with your vision of having live music, so at night it would not be a dog park? I'm just trying to figure out how this is all meshing together.
Yeah, good question. I think that in our vision, it would be something that would be more of a low-key live music scenario where it would be still open as a dog park and still available for people to be there with their pets. And so I don't envision changing the concept of the business when there is live music. It would be something that would happen and take place while the dog park and bar was operating as usual.
Okay, and for food, you're going to have food carts there?
Yeah, our ideal plan here would be to have permitted at least 2 places on our premise for food carts. And behind the bar, I think potentially the idea of prepackaged snacks like chips and things that would be approved by the Department of Health for us to offer in the business is sort of our plan as of right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Alder Carter. Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff, you had mentioned, I think on page 6 of your business plan, and I do appreciate how extensive that was, that you really didn't find any comparable licensed premises, either in Madison or really the state of Wisconsin, right?
That's correct. The places that we sort of used as our models have been mostly in the state of Texas.
How much research did you do into the examples I think you provided were like Austin and Dallas, right? Because I'm curious, you know, having going back to like how the concept of the beer garden was done here, and we kind of worked through that much different concept, but it was something we thought pretty diligently about conditions and things like that. Are you aware of just how those were licensed, or any conditions that were attached to those establishments by any chance?
No, you know, I wish I knew more details about their process, but I don't.
Well, could you just give me the names of the 2 establishments if you have them?
Yeah, one of them, the primary one that we were fond of in Dallas, is called the Mutt's Canine Cantina, and they have 2 locations, one in Dallas and one in Austin.
Yep. Great. Okay.
There's another one called the Yard Bar, and that one's in Austin also. And these are some similar concepts, similar in that they have both an on and off leash section to their business, and serve liquor and in certain cases food. I think in both those cases they serve food. We see a limitation there in terms of what we can do here for food, and so we're looking at outsourcing that to hopefully using food carts, and that's our plan.
Thank you very much. I guess a question for maybe Attorney Brist would be, given if this, I mean, how unique of a concept is this from his perspective, or your perspective, Attorney Brist, and you know, should we be treating this like a beer garden? I mean, what's the comparables from your perspective? Because sometimes I guess you know, yourself or Attorney Allen had questions that shaped kind of the licensing of these sorts of more newer concepts.
Well, this definitely is a different concept. I was looking at it as a bar with a dog theme. Frankly, what I was more concerned about from a regulatory standpoint was how we took care of the cart issue in terms of food carts coming in, and having a health approve that. I hadn't anticipated how we would handle that. I don't have any specific thoughts about dogs and people drinking. It does seem like there could be some security issues where one person gets into it with another person's dog or something like that. But I haven't got any prepared questions on those areas.
Yeah, it was just a thought that if there are questions to work through with the applicant, if we do refer this next month, if we use the intervening time to kind of work through those questions, so that versus referring it to next month, then we have technical questions that come up and we have to refer it again. Ask. So that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Alder Verveer, do you have your hand up?
I do, thank you. I just wanted to add, and it seems like I've been texting people all night that are on this agenda, but I just texted my council colleague, Alderperson Foster, the alder of the district, and his competing city committee has now adjourned, so he will be able to join us momentarily.
Excellent, thank you.
He's planning to do so.
Thank you, Alder Verveer.
Thank you.
Alder Carter.
Yes, this is a question for, so even though there was a snafu, was the snafu, which by the way is a technical term, was that relayed to Alder Foster?
Alder Foster has just joined us. So.
Because it seems like Alder Foster's response was that the applicant was negligent when it was actually an administration snafu.
I did not have a chance to relay to Alder Foster that we had simply put the application in the wrong basket and scheduled them at a ALRC meeting ahead of time and publicly noticed it as such. Alder Foster, you're joining us after I made this explanation earlier. So we had given the applicant a timeline that they would be on the August agenda. We'd give them an orange sign that said they would be on the August ALRC agenda. However, there was an administrative error where the basket, the application was put in the ALRC basket for this meeting in July. And so we had publicly noticed it in the paper and sent new postcards to anyone within 300 feet that they were going for this ALRC meeting. So the applicant had not scheduled their informational session meeting yet because they were under the impression that they would not be on the ALRC agenda for another month. And I had not explained that to you before, but I was going to get to that sometime after this meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll come back with my second question.
All right, thank you, Alder Carter. Mr. Cano-Espina.
So I was originally thinking to referral because that's what the Alder had requested. And after the conversation, I think that I really moving towards that. There's a lot of questions and a lot of really good questions that happen now. And I think that will be a good thing to do. So is there, I know that the Alder just joined us, so I don't know if there is a, can I make a motion now or do we still want to have more discussion on this?
You are welcome to make a motion.
So move to referral to the next LRC meeting.
I see a second from Mr. Fletcher. Do you care to speak to your motion? Mr. Cano-Espina, you're not required to do so.
No, I think that first that was a request from the Alder for based on his information, and I think that the Alder can speak to it. But based on the questions and the comments done by the Alder Bevier, Mr. Fletcher, and others, I think that we need to have a bigger discussion on this item and have more answers than what we can have today.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Cano-Espina. Alder Carter.
Yes, and thank you. I would ask that Attorney Briss do some research for us on how this will, just how this concept is going to work
regulations
with regulations and the food carts, the dogs and the llamas and who else is going to be there. So
all right,
if you could do that for us before the next one, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Jeff, if there actually will be llamas there, my girlfriend is going to be very excited about that. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the motion? Mr. Fletcher.
Thanks. I didn't know if Alder Foster wanted to, now that he's joined us, have an opportunity to add anything before we dispose of this item.
Alder Foster, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. I appreciate it. And thanks for Alder Revere giving me the notice. Yeah, so I think I'm mostly up to speed with where things are at and sort of what happened. So yeah, I'm certainly supportive of referring it. It sounds like there was sort of more of an administrative mix-up, which is good for me to hear as well. I wasn't aware that's what the issue was, so it's good to hear that it wasn't on the applicant. So I guess for the applicant, I sent you, I think I left you a voicemail or sent you an email earlier today or yesterday, but I think if we can get in touch, I can help make sure and get the word out to the neighborhood for that meeting. And I'm sure there will be a lot of questions there as well. And I think we'll be in a much better spot then to have this reviewed at the next meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Alder Foster. Any further discussion of this motion? Hearing none. Anyone who would not like us to record unanimous support for this motion, please indicate by raising your hand, and we will have a roll call vote. Seeing none, Mr. Verbick, please record for item 27, public hearing new license for the Boneyard, that this is referred to the next regularly scheduled ALRC meeting. And thank you for joining us, Alder Foster. It appears you have a very busy schedule. Next item is item 28, public hearing new license for Nanny Restaurant. Registered, available to answer questions is Zhihang Zhang, who is in attendance. Please state your name for the record and tell us about your concept.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zihan Zhang. I have been the owner of Nanny Restaurant for the past 5 years. I was the owner and the agent for Janko LLC. Moving forward, I will be the owner and agent for Guava Inc. as well. I'll continue to operate the restaurant, same as before, but moving forward, I've also requested to have 30 seats for the outdoors.
Mr. Verbick, why is this a new license?
I don't know.
Okay. Mr. Fletcher, was that your question also? Let's give Mr. Verbick a moment.
It's a different LLC. So Jihan Jiang or Jianco LLC is the current owner of the alcohol license, and Guava Inc. is the entity for this application.
I see. So this is an administrative action. Committee, what questions do you have for the applicant? Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what was mentioned, if the applicant could just clarify, the only real change is to add the outdoor capacity. Is that the only material change in the operations of the establishment?
Yes, that is correct, yes.
And then are you, how many people are involved in Guava Inc.? How many officers are there of the corporation?
It's just myself.
Okay. And how many folks were involved in the previous LLC that was kind of overseeing this establishment?
Myself as well.
Okay. So this really is an administrative thing. Okay. I have no further questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Mr. Cano-Espina.
There's nobody else. I would like to move to approve. Is there conditions on this license? And the previous license, were there conditions?
Mr. Verbick?
There was one condition that they meet the definition of restaurant per Madison General Ordinance.
Move to approve, maintaining the same condition.
Okay, got a motion to approve with that condition from Mr. Cano-Espina, second from Mr. Fletcher. Any discussion? Anyone opposed to recording of unanimous approval of this motion? Indicate by raising your hand. All right, seeing none, the motion passes. And Mr. Zhang, I'd like to commend you for dotting all the I's and crossing the T's with this. Usually people lean in the other direction on this, and it always makes us feel better when people do it right.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, that is all of our licensing business. Item 29, report of recent calls for service. Captain Donahue, is there anything to which you would like to call our attention?
No, as you can imagine, calls for service remain light due to COVID.
So, it's every cloud. Thank you. And item or any questions for Captain Donahue? All right, moving on. Item 30, summary of licenses issued. Mr. Verbick, is there anything to which you would like to draw our attention?
I'll just add that we got about 7 grandfather licenses back from renewals, and that's really all I have to offer.
All right, committee, what questions do you have for Mr. Verbick? Mr. Fletcher?
Jim, I'm assuming by you noting that is maybe proportionally, is that more than we have typically?
It varies. I think last year we actually got 12 back. However, that could be, there may have been accounting errors prior to that, where we may have had more license available. I don't think we did, but it's possible because that 12 is kind of a large number. 7 is, I feel like it's understandable in this current climate. So I'm not particularly alarmed by it. The city did expand all of the expiration dates for non-alcohol licenses, and the county expired their health licenses, but the alcohol licenses were locked in on the June 30th date because of state statute.
Thank you.
Makes sense. Ms. Westra, and then Mr. Landgraf, and then Mr. Cano Espina. Ms. Westra, I'm not hearing you, but you don't appear to be muted. Do you have to fold your microphone down?
Helpful if I pull the microphone down. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Absolutely, loud and clear.
Yeah. Jim, we get notified when licenses are not picked up. Do we get notified when licenses are returned? With the ongoing economic crisis, as then we're starting to see places close, is there a way for us to get notified that licenses are being returned to the clerk's office?
It's not often that alcohol licenses get returned. I would say in a normal year, we maybe get 1 or 2 like that. Most times you see the drop off is at renewal time where they just don't renew the licenses. Even now, we do have a number of licenses that they have not paid the renewal fees for. So they have not had a license issued for this new licensing year, but they still have the ability to do that at any point. I mean, with alcohol licensing, I mean, they can renew it every year, but they at least have to pay for it before they renew it. And there is city ordinance that says if they're not actively using the license for a period of, I think it's like 10 or 15 consecutive days, it's eligible to be revoked for revocation. I feel like the city is giving definite considerations given what's going on right now, that if it's COVID-19 related, there's some understanding there. But we have a lot of licenses right now that aren't issued. I think we have, I would say maybe about 60 like that, that they have not paid for their renewal fees for this year, or they have a condition, or they're not a condition, but they have a hold on it, like personal property tax, or they have outstanding debt to their wholesalers that have put a hold on the license.
Can we get a report of those?
Yeah, I can send it your way.
Perfect, thank you.
I think
Michael is talking to himself.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, darn it. I was about to sneeze and I muted myself because I did not want to hear that. Thank you, Ms. Westra. We're going to have a bunch of people in the queue. Mr. Landgraf, then Mr. Cano Espina, then Alder Verveer, then Alder Carter. So first, Mr. Landgraf.
Yeah, my comment was in part also covered by Ms. Westra's comment. Alcohol is a cash crop for restaurants, and of course, volume is a big issue, and hours are a big issue, and volume is certainly impacted by the social distancing and other issues that COVID-19 is bringing along. So, and the UW. I mean, what happens here in the fall is going to be interesting. My classes will all be hybrid, so I will probably go through an entire semester without meeting the students, and that's fairly common, I think, as classes are being put together. So it's unclear how many students will be on campus. So all that, Jim, I was just going to ask you: are you getting any? Are you getting calls from people that have licenses to say, hey, I'm scratching my head wondering what I might do, what are my options, and in part, to Ms. Westra's point, perhaps creating some sort of feedback loop because, the former mayor was worried about a concentration of alcohol licenses on State Street, so current events may just take care of that for all the wrong reasons, but and certainly painful ones. But are you getting any? Are people checking in with you to say, "Hey, I'm thinking about this. What should I be thinking about?"
I would say there's only one instance I've sort of heard from, and I really feel for the guy. I think it's Blue Plate Catering has the alcohol license for Warner Park, which has currently been taken over as a shelter. And so they haven't renewed their license because they aren't operating right now because it's a shelter. And they've asked for sort of to be only able to pay for the months in which they're able to eventually get the license. However, I don't think there's any way in the state statute that allows for something like that. They could surrender the license and reapply for it once they're able to get the premise back and start operating if they want to have savings that way. But I don't think there's any way in the statutes to allow them to only pay for a proration after the license has already been in their name.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Landgraf. Mr. Cano Espina.
I didn't have any comments about the license. I was hoping to make a comment of gratitude to our previous chair, Tom. So I don't want to jump that. If we have other comments on the previous subject, I don't want
to. You, but I'll make sure that you get a chance to talk before the meeting is adjourned.
That was it.
All right, Alder Verveer, and then Alder Carter.
Thank you. I wanted to just mention to my colleagues the fact, and Jim can articulate further if you're interested in any of this, but historically the city clerk's office provides each of the Madison Police Department districts a list on the evening of June 30th each year of all of the licenses that are about to expire for various reasons, including delinquent personal property tax or wholesaler holds or having not paid the city renewal fees and so forth. And because of my curiosity, I routinely every year ask for that information, as Jim remembers. So I think it would be an excellent idea, as Ms. Westra suggested, that not only do we get an updated list of what the current status is, but if you can remember, Jim, perhaps to include the ALRC on that list that you send to the cops every year, I always find it fascinating, and often over the years, the establishments in my district, I will remind them that their license is about to expire, and that they're very appreciative because they simply forgot to pay the fee on time. And additionally, I would just say anecdotally that the list is exceedingly long, as Jim already articulated. The list this time around on the night of June 30th is 10 pages of establishments that legally could not sell alcohol on July 1st, or after midnight, I guess technically, on July 1st, and including at least 3 pages in the Central Police District, which is way more than I've ever seen all the years I've been on this committee and have asked for those lists. So I guess one, it was just to let you all know that information is available, and it would be great if we could automatically receive it each year, Jim. And secondly, did I hear you say in response to an earlier question, or that there still are at least 60 establishments that are not legally able to sell alcohol in our city?
That's an estimation. I know I had just sent around about 4 minutes ago the list to the committee. Because the list does have a mix of folks who did not renew, and those would be anyone where the status is renewal paperwork sent. So there is a mix of there, and I think the count that's on the bottom of that list says 80. So that count that's on that is 80 is a mix of both those who did not renew and those who have renewed, but have not either paid for the license fees or have some sort of hold on it.
Yeah, I see. And again, this is effective at the time in the upper right-hand corner yesterday morning of your report that you just sent us. This was all effective. This is the information as of yesterday morning. Is that correct?
Yes, I know Halong Bay did come in today and pay for it, so they're on this list, but they have made whole their alcohol license and were issued it before they left the office today.
Yeah, there is a really, again, still a unusually large number, but obviously given the pandemic, I guess none of us, of course, should be surprised by that. Could I ask Captain Donahue too, if you don't mind? Do you know, Captain, and obviously things are completely upside down in the Central District in so many respects, and part what you originally mentioned was so many of the taverns mostly closed, but do you know, did you by chance, or Lieutenant Nail, have a chance to ask your CPT or patrol to go around with this list and see if any of these establishments were mistakenly still serving?
Yeah, CPT was working on it. We had an issue come up that I won't go into here that has prevented us from doing some of that. But it is on our to-do list, and we talked about it again today. So I believe that we'll be at it again tomorrow.
Great, thank you. And maybe if you could also remind your fellow captains.
I would love to.
And as they command the other districts, and obviously Jim has a relatively recent report for us, and he can always provide the PD, the most updated report, if anyone asks for it.
I think I did send that exact report around yesterday after I generated it to the district captains.
Oh, okay, great. Very good. Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alder Verveer, Alder Carter, and then Ms. Westra.
Yeah, Jim, I was just wondering that, as you know, COVID has really took a direct hit on the service industry, restaurants, hotels, and bars. So do we have, or did you mention that we have, that we are, what do I want to say? Providing some space for restaurants and bars, etc., to come in later to pick up their license without any fines or anything?
So the council did relax late fees and suspend them until 60 days after the, essentially what my understanding is late fees will be instituted 60 days after Dane County goes into phase 4 of their Dane Forward plan. So right
Okay.
now, I think we went from 3 back to 2, if I'm recalling right. So that date in which they'd have to pay late fees is unknown at this time.
Well, at some point, we're going to have to transition into how do we live with COVID. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but that is in our future. I'm just going to switch over real quickly to Mr. Tom. I can't believe last day. I don't know how you're going to live without hearing my voice, but I hope you can make it. I'll be praying for you that you can make it without hearing me on a monthly basis. We really enjoyed having you, and I wish you best of luck in all your endeavors. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alder Carter. Ms. Westra, did you still have anything?
The only question I had on the list was if the status is about to expire, these are actually people, if they're serving, are in violation.
Correct. Everyone that's on that list is in violation.
In violation. Okay.
Even if they're on that list and they say active, they have a hold on their license because they've not paid personal property tax.
So they haven't been issued.
They have not been issued. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
excellent.
Jim, are they in violation if they are not in operation?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
So if they're closed, or I guess if they're open and not serving any alcohol, they're fine. Anyway, Mr. Cano Espina.
Thank you. And thank you all for those very good comments and questions. A lot of things for us to think about. I wanted to say thank you to Tom for being our chair for actually the whole time that I've been in the committee. I think that I had maybe 1 or 2 months with our previous chair, and then he left and you started. So it has been a pleasure for me to work with you. All those late nights, long meetings, and I learned a lot from you, and we're gonna miss you. But it is nice to know there is life after being a member of this committee. So I'm looking forward to hearing that you are having fun, and maybe you can come in one day and say, "Hey guys, hello, it's 7 o'clock and I can go home and rest and not stay until 2 a.m. one time." So thank you so much for everything that you did through the whole time that I was part of this.
Alder Verveer and then Mr. Grady.
Well, thank you. If now is the appropriate time to talk about our beloved former chair, I'd like to do so myself. And Tom, I'm going to miss you terribly. For those that don't know, I first met Tom when I was a rookie alder many years ago, and was assigned to serve on the city's Public Safety Review Board. It was called board at the time. Now it's, as the alders know, on this committee, and Captain Donahue knows, it's now the Public Safety Review Committee. But in any event, Tom was the most gracious chair I could ask for as a kid alder in the 1990s when I joined that committee. He had already served on the Public Safety Review Board for so many years that he was the chairperson, as I say, of that committee at the time. We'd meet down in the former police chief's conference room every month. Remember Anita Parrott, Kelly and Tom? Well, she was such a treasure of a staffer to our committee. She's a hoot. Retired many years ago now. But anyway, so my relationship with you, Tom, goes back, 25 years now. But your service to City Hall has gone back about 30 years. Because if I remember correctly, you joined the PSRB in the kind of 1980s, I think late 1980s. And then after serving on the PSRB for close to 20 years, you've now been on our committee, ably serving on the ALRC for over a dozen years now. So I think it's practically unprecedented to have a community member serve on city committees for so many decades, pretty much with an uninterrupted service between two different committees. And I know we've always also enlisted you in the past, thanks to your real estate expertise, to help the city, Tom, both formally and informally, both as a consultant and then also pro bono capacity. Especially, I know you worked for many years in the Capital East District, East Washington Avenue, on those redevelopment potentials there, which obviously has transformed from when you first started working on that. I've also had great pleasure, Tom, working with your students over the years at the UW Business School. It's always been a pleasure when you've invited me to be a guest lecturer at your real estate classes and to work on them on assignments if they cover potential development in the downtown area here. And it really has been a pleasure working with you in that sense too. So I consider you a friend and a colleague, and I'm going to miss you terribly. I think you have done an absolutely spectacular job all the years that you've served us on the ALRC, both as a chair and a regular member. And then of course, going back to my service 25 years ago, over 25 years ago now, when I was on the Public Safety Review Board with you. You've been nothing but a gentleman and been so kind and always diplomatic in your dealings with me and putting up with me. I really appreciated it. So I cannot thank you enough for your service to City Hall. As I say, I think it's practically unprecedented for someone to have served to the extent that you have. I want you to enjoy your well-deserved retirement from official city committee service. If I know you, I have a feeling you might be back in terms of your city committee service. We certainly, perhaps we'll see you again through your real estate consulting endeavors as well in City Hall. But I will miss you very much the third Wednesday of every month. And maybe we won't miss each other as much during renewal time, the end of May every year, because that has never been the most pleasant of meetings. But anyway, Tom, I wish you Godspeed and can't thank you enough for your tremendous service to our community. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Alder Revere. Mr. Grady. Mr. Grady, you need to accept the unmute request.
I should mention that Pat also remembers Anita Parrott, don't you, Pat?
I do. Yeah, she's a wonderful woman.
Absolutely.
Yeah, had her little quirks, but they were something you could pass over. Well, to get back to Tom here, I just want to say there probably isn't very much I can add after Mike's comments. They were heartfelt, and I'm sure Tom appreciated them. But I appreciated the order that you brought and the insights you brought to our meetings. And I appreciate the mentoring that you gave us. Especially me, I had a lot of questions on our rides home. And I really appreciated that. And I also found you to be one of the most cordial and patient people I've ever met. Because some of these meetings, especially during my first years, were quite long and took a lot of fortitude to get through. And I guess you're probably our star, other than Mike. So we're going to go on without you. But I want you to know we all, I think, really care about you and wish you the very best in the future. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Grady. Anyone else have any comments they would like to make? Perhaps Mr. Landgraf?
Sure. Am I unmuted?
Yep.
Yeah, I see that the chair blew up my picture, so you now know that I didn't shave for the meeting today. I was sitting back here thinking, gosh, I'm sure nobody can see that with my small photograph, but so thanks, Mike. And I apologize for joining late. I was on a different computer and it had an old version of Zoom on it, and it took me 15 minutes to get that sorted out. So I wasn't playing hooky. But just to make it real short, I was working on a list of things that I thought were items that we had been talking about pretty actively prior to the pandemic arriving at our doorstep, and I'm going to continue to work on those, and I'll send them all out to you with some thoughts on what my 2 cents would have been worth on some of those. So I won't touch on any of that, but I would say, especially to any citizens who are still watching, the city of Madison provides an unbelievable opportunity for you to get involved in literally every aspect of city government. We have hundreds of standing and ad hoc committees. Alders are, I think most of them get 5 or 6 assignments per committee. So they're stretched pretty far, but it's a tremendous opportunity to get an insight into how things work. But most importantly, you get to meet some people who you wouldn't normally meet. The alders, I was on their radar screen because they were usually tapped to come to my class. And Alder Carter, you are on the list, so you will not escape in the fall. And certainly the police captains have always been there. I've had Central District captains talking in my classes for a long time, and they always turn out to be one of the popular speakers because most students are running the other direction when they see a badge, and when they see one in a classroom who's just a regular person talking about tough stuff, it's really beneficial for them. And those of you that aren't alders and aren't the police captain, I wouldn't have met. As the saying goes, we would have passed like 2 ships in the night. And that is one of the real benefits that I take away from this. I'm not leaving Madison, so I'm sure we'll bump into each other, and you may have a need to ask in the future. And I never really added it up, Mike. 30 years seems like an awfully long time of continuous service to city committees, but it has not been a burden, which is why I haven't been counting. So don't feel that you need to be shy if you have a question or want me to help you out. But I really do appreciate your friendship and your tolerating with my screwing up the agendas here as we went live. I'm not a techno person, so we did make it through, but I really do value your friendship. I do hope our paths cross. And I can't say enough about all the great times we've had, even though some of them have been late in the evening. They've all been worth it because the city has benefited from your commitment to making this kind of tough licensing process work. So I really applaud you all for being part of the team.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Landgraf. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Oh, wait, Mr. Fletcher.
I was going to, I very much appreciate Tom's follow-up, and I just want to add, a lot of people have said a lot of great things. I think Tom has been an excellent ambassador for the UW on this committee. I think his concern for kind of the students and the kind of relationship with the city is something that above and beyond everything that I agree with that's been said, that I just want to just want to add and thank Tom and he's been very consistent about throughout his time chairing the committee and being very diplomatic, I think was the word used earlier with members of the public in kind of all of his dealings as chair. So I do want to just add that. I didn't know if you were looking for a motion to adjourn, though, Mr. Donnelly, which I'm happy to provide you. I see Alder Verveer's hand up, though. So
then let's hold off on the motion since that motion is not debatable. And once it happens, we have to vote on it. Yes. So Alder Verveer.
Thank you. I'm impressed with your Robert's Rules knowledge. And congratulations on your newly minted chairperson, Donnelly. Anyway, I actually moved to adjourn in honor of the public service of Tom Landgraf.
All right, we've got a motion. Do I see a second? Second from Mr. Cano Espina. I'm going to unmute everybody. All in favor of adjournment indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed have the same privilege. The ayes have it. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.